Chapter 206. The current Yamu was the real goddess Athena. The golden armor completely covered her delicate body. The armor was a perfect fit with her body, and not a single inch of her skin was exposed. Within the golden armor, only her beautiful face and long purple hair could be seen. Tears flowed down her beautiful face. Although the holy aura she exuded had even surpassed that of Pope Marty, Yamu was actually trembling slightly at this time, which destroyed her originally incomparably holy and noble appearance. The circular shield looked even more lustrous than when Shan and Chiyu were fighting. The 12 constellation patterns on the surface of the shield appeared on the edges, as if they were alive, gently moving in a rhythmic manner. The original scepter had completely turned into a golden spear. The spear was like a sword, and the tip of the spear was like a pool of autumn water. Brilliance flowed on it, and even dust could not fall on it. Yama's body had just stabilized. She did not chase after the mysterious Gemini girl who was forced back by the sharp spear. The spear in her hand was almost immediately inserted into the ground. Her delicate body brought along a golden afterimage as she instantly appeared beside Chiyu and hugged his body that was falling from the sky. She tightly hugged his body from behind. Her eyes revealed not only sadness, but also deep despair. At this moment, although she had become the real goddess Athena, Yamu had never felt such pain in her life. Gemini nimbly flipped over on the ground and barely stood firm. Her chest was constantly moving up and down, and her eyes were full of resentment and anger. She did not look at Yamu, and her gaze was completely focused on Chiyu. At this time, the constellation guardians that were previously fighting also stopped fighting, and all their gazes were focused on Chiyu and Yamu. Mephistopheles' eyes revealed intense excitement, and the fat on his face trembled. "Miss, that's great. We finally succeeded." Yamu did not pay attention to him. At this time, in her eyes, there was only Chiyu, who had completely lost his life and was on the verge of death. A huge amount of divine power rushed into Chiyu's body without reservation, causing the surface of Chiyu's skin to be dyed with a layer of lustrous golden light. The huge energy aura made Chiyu seem to be a little better, but the deathly stillness in his eyes still did not change. I'm sorry, Chiyu. Yamu was already sobbing. Although her divine power could temporarily save Chiyu's life, it was not of much use now. Chiyu's life was destined to end soon. The origin of nature energy in his body had been completely absorbed by Yamu, and even the last of his life had entered Yamu's body along with the origin of nature. Although there were no fatal injuries on his body, at this time, all the functions of his body had been exhausted. Even Goddess Athena, Yamu had no way to save Chiyu's life from the hands of the god of death. After all, her energy could not bring the dead back to life, so there was no such effect. Chiyu also only had eyes for Yamu. He found that everything in front of him had become black and white. He could still barely hear Yamu's voice, but her beautiful face had long become blurry in his eyes. Why? Let me know why. Chiyu's voice was very calm and did not even sound weak, but it was extremely difficult for him to spit out every word. Yamu's tears flowed even more violently, dripping on Chiyu's chest, wetting his clothes, but at this time, she could not say a word. She could only cry continuously, desperately using her divine power to maintain the last bit of Chiyu's breath. She knew that once her divine power was withdrawn, then Chiyu and his life would immediately disappear. Chiyu, you fool, you idiot, why? Why did you do so much for this woman, you bastard? Why? Gemini suddenly rushed towards Yamu and Chiyu like crazy. No one stopped her, because the constellation guardians knew that even if Yamu did not retaliate, Gemini would not be able to break her defense. Gemini rushed all the way to a meter in front of Chiyu before stopping. Chiyu, aren't you very smart? Can't you see? All of this is a trap. This woman is just using you. And you are really foolishly being used by her. Not only did you destroy everything for me, you also destroyed everything for yourself. As she said that, she pulled down the veil on her face, revealing her true appearance. Even though Chiyu was on the verge of death, when he saw the face of the woman in front of him, His body could not help but tremble violently, his emotions reaching an uncontrollable peak. He did not expect that the woman in front of him, who seemed to be the cause of all of this, was actually her. How could it be you? His vision was still blurry, but Chiyu clearly recognized the woman in front of him, the woman he had once lived with. How could he forget that kind of beautiful and gentle face? Big sister Yin, how could it be you? Why are you here? All of this, just... Speaking until here, Chiyu panted violently, but it no longer had any effect on his body. Yamu was so frightened that she sincerely increased the amount of energy she channeled into Chiyu's body, barely keeping him alive. That's right, that mysterious woman who had brought experts from the church, the person who had planned the Cloud Killer Rain Eyes, was actually the first woman to enter Chiyu's heart. She was also the first woman who had given him a good impression, the first woman who had given him the feeling that she was his home. She was Shen Yun, a woman that Chiyu would never have imagined. No wonder I was affected by your scream. That must be the psionic storm ability you mentioned, right? No wonder I always felt that your voice was so familiar. Big sister Yun, I never thought that my opponent would be you. At this moment, Shun Yun and Yamu were both covered in tears, but her expression was much more complicated than Yamu's. The rain gear was just pure sadness, but her eyes were filled with unwillingness, resentment, sadness, and other complex emotions. Looking at Chiyu, she slowly raised her hand and pointed at Yamu. Why? Chiyu, do you want to know why? Fine, I'll tell you everything. I think at this moment, I already understand that this was a trap I set up, and in the end, I was the one who suffered the consequences. Marty, isn't that so? You never had the sincerity to cooperate with me. In the distance, the Pope still stood there, but his voice could be heard clearly by everyone present. Mysterious Miss Gemini, it seems that it's a little too late for you to guess it now. That's right. Your promise to me back then was very tempting, but unfortunately, before you made your promise to me, I've already promised Miss Yamu. Do you think that if I were to choose who to cooperate with, I would choose you, or Miss Yamu, who has already inherited Athena's divinity? No matter what kind of background you have, my final choice will be everything. That's right. I sympathize with what you've encountered. Perhaps the heavens have treated you poorly, but unfortunately, as the leader of the Vatican, I have to make the right choice. As he spoke, Marty's body suddenly shone with a golden light, and in the next moment, he was already beside Yamu. The previously peaceful divine energy instantly increased by at least 5 times, and it completely locked onto Shun Yun's constellation guardian. The situation was completely set, and Yamu's goal had been achieved, so there was no need for him to hide anymore. Shun Yun looked at Marty with deep resentment. I admit that I've lost today. I lost because I was too confident. As she spoke, her gaze swept past Yamu and Marty's faces. But I didn't lose to you. Yamu, you have to admit that although this was a trap set by you, if it wasn't for Chiyu, the outcome today might not have been like this. Yamu took a deep breath, barely controlling her emotions, and said sadly, Sister, you also have to know that if it wasn't for Chiyu, I wouldn't have given you this chance. Shun Yun was stunned for a moment, and looked deeply into Yamu's eyes. Perhaps. If it wasn't for Chiyu, you might not have been so daring. I knew that this was a trap set by you, but I still dared to rush in because I couldn't wait, and I couldn't wait any longer. This was practically my only chance. The winner takes all. I lost, but did you win gloriously? You used Chiyu's only weakness, and that was his poor resistance to beautiful women. If it wasn't for you deceiving his feelings, would you have been able to obtain the final victory? Yamu slowly lowered her head and looked at Chiyu in her arms, who was emitting an aura of death. Her tears actually turned golden. Chiyu's eyeballs could no longer move, be it his expression or his gaze. There were no fluctuations. He only listened quietly with the support of Yamu's divine power. The other emotions in Shun Yun's gaze also gradually weakened, since things had already been decided. So what if she was resentful? She knew that she had completely lost the chance to become Athena. At this moment, all that was left in her eyes was sorrow. Chiyu, didn't you want to know the truth of the matter? Fine, I'll tell you now. Taking a deep breath, a faint light flashed in Chi-Yu's eyes. His current emotions were already indescribable because he simply didn't know what he should be thinking. The deathly stillness in his heart caused his mind to go completely blank, and he could only quietly listen to Shun Yun's narration. Shun Yun wiped away the tears on his face, looked at Chi-Yu, and said, "This matter started a long, long time ago. Around 19 years ago, an ordinary family in Greece gave birth to a pair of twins. They were a pair of girls. On that day, when they were born, the skies suddenly changed greatly. Golden light circulated, and the hospital room where their mother was in was completely enveloped by the golden light. However, under the enormous golden light, the doctors, nurses, and their parents who were present were completely swallowed. Not even a speck of them was left behind. What was strange was that the two babies were not harmed in the slightest. However, because of the appearance of this golden light, they became lonely from the moment they were born. The symbol of Athens, Parthenon, underwent an abnormal change. The image of the guardian of the 12 constellations appeared in the temple, and the 12 constellations were abnormally clear, as if they were alive. From that moment on, those in power in Greece knew that a new generation of guardian of Greece had been born, and this generation's guardian was actually the symbol of Athens, the goddess of war and wisdom, Athena. At this point, Shinyan paused and looked at Yemo. At this moment, Yemo had just raised her head, and their gazes met. When their gazes met, a strange feeling appeared. Shinyan took a deep breath. This pair of twin girls who became lonely their entire lives are me and Yemo. When she said the last few words, she paused, and her tone was abnormally heavy. Chi-Yu's body trembled slightly again, causing the divine light released by Yemo to fluctuate slightly. Yemu's heart tightened, and she hurriedly turned her gaze from Shun Yun to Chi-Yu. She tried her best to control her divine power and carefully maintain the last bit of aura on Chi-Yu's body. Shin Yun continued, "Yes, we are the twin girls. I am the elder sister, and Yemu is my twin. Chi-Yu, I know that you must be very curious right now. Since we are twin sisters, why do I not have any similarities with Yemu? Actually, this problem is not difficult to solve, because all along, the Shun Yin you know has never had his original appearance, and my original name, in Yin Huang language, should be Yu Yin." Yemo suddenly shouted agitatedly, "Don't say any more, don't say any more." Yu Yin was not affected by the sudden burst of light on her body, and a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. "Are you afraid? What else do you have to be afraid of now? The matter has already been decided, and so has our ending. Chi-Yu is going to die, and he can no longer be a threat to you. You have already obtained what you wanted from him. Can't the blessed enclave let him know everything before he dies after deceiving his feelings? Using the words of Yin Huang, even if he dies, don't let him be a muddled ghost." Yemu was stunned for a moment, and her eyes, which had been swirling with tears, looked a little sluggish. The light flickered, and she focused her gaze on Chi-Yu's face again. She did not say anything, and even Pope Marty and the other Constellation Guardians present wanted to hear the whole story. Yiyun continued, "When this pair of baby girls were born, they indeed received the blessings of the goddess of war and wisdom, Athena, and thus became the goddess inheritors, possessing the holy infant that could inherit the goddess divine power. However, they also lost the person closest to them, and even their other relatives and friends did not know that they were still alive. Until today, they are still orphans." At this point, regardless of whether it was Yiyun or Yemu, the sorrow in their eyes deepened. There is only one goddess, Athena's godly seat, so only one person can inherit it, and that person is me. I am the older sister, and I was born before Yemu, so goddess Athena's godly seat naturally chose me. I became the new generation's inheritor of goddess Athena, but everything changed because of one person, and that person is him. As she spoke, she suddenly raised her right hand and pointed her index finger at Mephisto, the Libra constellation guardian beside her. Mephisto's body trembled, but he did not refute. He only sighed deeply and lowered his head. Yuyun snorted coldly. "Why? Do you regret it now? But it's too late, Mephisto. If not for you, would I be like this today? Until now, I still do not understand why you sent me away, but did not kill me. If you had killed me directly, perhaps I would not have lived in hatred for so many years. But do you know? I don't hate you. At least you preserved my life. I hate her, Yumo. She took away everything that should have belonged to me. Chiyu, I'll show you my true colors now. Even if I die, I won't let you have any regrets. The right hand that was pointing at Mephisto swiped across her face. Like magic, a thin layer of thin film stuck to her slender little hand. The original Shen Yun had disappeared, and the one who appeared in front of everyone, other than the lack of a strong holy aura and the difference in the color of her hair, was exactly the same as Yamu. Yu Yun said calmly, "This is my original appearance. As Yama's twin sister, we look exactly the same, but the difference in our experiences is too great. From the moment she was born, she was everyone's darling, the inheritor of Athena. What about me? What am I? What have I experienced? Do you know?" A series of questions came out of Shun Yun's mouth. Her emotions were getting more and more agitated. Mephisto sent me to the Shun family in the capital of the Yanhuang Republic. From that day onwards, my appearance changed. I was no longer as beautiful as you, because I had to disappear. Whether it was my person or my appearance, I could only live as an ordinary girl in Yanhuang. Because of that, everything that you had was everything that I had lost. If not for that day, I would never have known that I was actually from Greece. Mephisto, this is also the second point that I have to thank you for. At least you gave me a reason to take revenge on her. Although I've already failed, I would rather this be the case than live my life in a muddle. On a day 10 years ago, because Goddess Athena's divinity was taken away, my consciousness changed. For some strange reason, I became the constellation guardian of the Gemini constellation. And because of this, I met you. Although you didn't tell me everything, because I seemed to be the constellation guardian of the Gemini constellation, you told me some simple things. Perhaps it was the will of the heavens. Although my strength continued to grow, the simple words you told me back then had already made me suspicious and even made me feel resentful. That was why I never displayed my true strength in front of you. At the same time, since the age of 9, I have been quietly waiting for an opportunity to come. After nearly 7 years of investigation, I finally found out everything that happened back then. Perhaps you have already forgotten. At that time, when you secretly came to the Yanhuang Republic to look for me, because of my relationship with Yamu, and the plot was not good, you drank a little too much. That day, you might have thought that you had fallen asleep, but as the constellation guardian of the Gemini constellation, the special skill of marriage is the soul storm, and it is far stronger than the soul storm that you know of. Therefore, on that day, through the control of your soul, I already knew everything, and from that day onwards, the seed of hatred has been buried in my heart. Mephisto sighed and said, "Miss Yun, you are right. That time was my mistake. But why do you have to be so stubborn? I really hope that you are not the constellation guardian of the Gemini constellation. If that was the case, you would not have to go through so many troubles, and you would still be a happy girl in the Shun family. Don't you think that that is the only way you can obtain true happiness? But as one of the signs of the Zodiac and the constellation guardian, we cannot do without you. If we lack one palace, even if we completely inherit the Luda of Goddess Athena, we will not be able to reach the peak of our strength. After all, from a certain point of view, we are a part of Goddess Athena. So, I've been thinking of ways to influence your feelings, to let you truly accept everything that is happening now. But I gradually discovered the hatred and ambition in your heart. So, subconsciously, I was always on guard against you, and did not teach you the most correct cultivation method of the Constellation Guardian. But I did not expect that time when I was drunk, not only did you know everything at the same time, it also gave you the true cultivation method, as well as the method to contact the other Constellation Guardians. I am afraid that it was also from that time onwards that you truly became stronger, and you really had the chance to contact the Constellation Guardians. Yiyun said, "That's right. It was from that time onwards that I had my own goal in life. I wanted to rely on my own strength to get back everything that I have. Living in the Shun family, Other than working hard on my cultivation, I would search for records of the Greek gods. When I got to know Suwa, my plan finally started to take shape, and it was also from that time onwards that my plan began to take shape. In these 2 years, I used my own identity and various methods to finally obtain the support of the 5 constellation guardians. Suwa told me that the other 6 had already become the most loyal supporters of Yamu. So, in order not to alert the enemy, I did not continue to do anything and only waited for the opportunity to come. But I did not think that the opportunity would come so quickly. According to what I know, the divinity of goddess Athena cannot be easily inherited. What Yamu inherited was only the basic abilities of the divinity. To truly possess the power of goddess Athena's divinity, one must go through a long period of time and even have a certain amount of luck. Otherwise, it is hard to say how much of goddess Athena's power can be obtained. So, I've been waiting and training hard, but I did not think that the opportunity would come when I was not fully prepared. Mephistopheles sighed. Actually, this plan was decided not long ago when I discovered that you had unintentionally revealed your strength. When you first met me, you should not have revealed your overly strong spiritual power and the information that you were familiar with the Constellation Guardians. At that time, I already felt that something was wrong, but I still held onto a glimmer of hope. After all, we are all Constellation Guardians of Goddess Athena. Only by working together can we become the most powerful guardian of Greece in history. We can protect Greece and our East. From that time, I began to pay attention. I knew that I could no longer hide anything from Miss, so I told Miss everything. Actually, Miss is the most innocent, but we also know that it is easier said than done to vent the hatred in your heart. So, since such a crisis has already appeared, we might as well trigger it. Using the opportunity of Mr. Chi Yu's arrival in Greece, we began to carry out the plan. Only by letting Miss truly become Goddess Athena could we make you lose hope, and thus recognize your current identity as the Constellation Guardian of Gemini. But I did not expect that Miss would actually fall in love with Mr. Chi. A strange light flashed in his eyes, and Yun said in a daze, "What did you say? Yemo actually fell in love with Chi Yu? I don't believe it. If a woman falls in love with a man, then why would she? Because I have to do this." Yema shouted, her voice choked with sobs, and she could not control it at all. Ian looked at her hatefully and said disdainfully, "You can't do it. Why can't you? Just because you are a virgin goddess? No, you chose to give up on Chi Yu for your current position, for your current power. That's right. In your heart. How can he be compared to your current position? In Greece, you are the supreme existence." Rain Eyes said mournfully, "Sister, I really had no choice but to roar. Everything you know is true. If I die, you can indeed obtain great power, and once again obtain Goddess Athena's divinity in my blood. But if that is really the case, you will only obtain Goddess Athena's pseudo-divine power, because Goddess Athena's divinity has long been fused with my body. Even if my blood can condense enough energy, it is not all. The world's calamity is about to happen. If it is only pseudo-divine power, you will not be able to lead the Constellation Guardians to protect Greece, to protect the West. Taking a step back, even if you can obtain everything I have, if you become Goddess Athena, it will inevitably lead to one less Constellation Guardian. Losing one Constellation Guardian will be a huge blow to us. That's right, I really like Chi Yu. Although Chi Yu looks ordinary, the aura in his eyes, the temperament he exudes, is completely different from what he shows on the surface. His attraction to me is indescribable. When I am with him, I can truly experience the happiness of being a woman. Only he would treat me like an ordinary girl. After countless struggles, I finally made up my mind. In the end, I still hurt Chi Yu and let his life become the cornerstone for me to inherit Goddess Athena's divinity. That's right, I did obtain great power, but do you know how much I have to sacrifice to obtain this power? If it was the other way around, I would rather give all of Goddess Athena's divinity to you. I just want to be like you in the Yanhuang Republic, an ordinary human being, and become his woman. That would be true happiness for me. But I really can't because my life does not belong to me, but to the whole of Greece and even the whole West. So, in this situation, I can only do this. I can only do this, do you know? Yamu's voice became somewhat hysterical, and the golden light in her eyes fluctuated violently. Due to the influence of her emotions, the divine energy she transferred to Chiyu also changed, causing his aura to react strongly. Chiyu's body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of black blood. For some reason, after spitting out this mouthful of blood, Chiyu became more clear-headed, and even everything in front of him became clearer. With a smile, a faint cold light appeared in Chiyu's eyes. Continue, Yamu, withdraw your divinity. Don't worry, before you tell me everything, I will not die, because I am not resigned to this. Now, his emotions were very calm. Listening to the twin sisters' narration, he had regained his power, and he was just a sacrifice in their power struggle. Yama's body trembled. She could clearly feel a wave of energy coming from Chiyu's body, and this wave of energy came from his heart. When this wave of energy appeared, it was the demonic energy that had been fighting with Chiyu when he first arrived. When this energy appeared, Yamu could not help but be shocked. Could it be that he could continue to live? Yamu's shock only lasted for a moment, and she could clearly feel that the energy filled with the aura of death was quickly dissipating, and this energy only made Chiyu feel a little better. She understood that this was the phenomenon of the final radiance of the setting sun. Chapter 207. Chiyu's eyes revealed a faint glint. His gaze swept across Yama's face and then Yuyun's face. Yuyun, your hair should have been dyed before, right? No matter how you want to deal with Yamu, it has nothing to do with me. However, why did you drag the Dracula family into this? Yuyun's laughter stopped because tears were already flowing down her cheeks amidst her laughter. Chiyu, I'm sorry. I don't know what kind of feelings I have for you. However, I can tell you that you're the only man that I've ever fallen for in my life. Do you still remember what happened to the seaside? In the sea, you used your own strength to save me and Su Qing. At that time, my strength had already been raised to a certain level. However, under that kind of sudden attack, it was impossible for me to fight against that huge monster. You saved my life. I'm a girl, and even though I like women, especially Qing, you've left an indelible mark in my heart. There's a very special emotion about you that I'm infatuated with. Man, you're not pretentious at all. I like your powerful strength, and I've thought of using your strength to achieve my own goals to deal with Yamu together. However, I can't do that. I'm different from Yamu. Ever since I found out about my birth, pain and hatred have been entangling my body and mind. Being with you is one of the few beautiful memories in my heart, and I don't want to destroy this kind of novel memory. Therefore, I can only bury my feelings for you in the bottom of my heart. If it wasn't for the fact that Goddess Athena must be a virgin to inherit the godly seat, I would have even thought of offering myself to you. I don't care about my chastity. I'm very, very tired. For the sake of the plan in my heart, I've put in so much effort for the only goal in my life. What I'm tired of is my heart. My heart has been touched more than once, and I've thought of giving up more than once. However, the hatred in my heart has forced me to persevere, and the hatred in my heart has kept me alive until now. There's one thing you must be clear about. It wasn't me who brought trouble to the Dracula family. It was you. If you didn't stop at the Dracula family, why would I point my target here? The one who really destroyed the Dracula family was the Holy See. They used me. This great supreme pontiff made use of my hatred towards Yamu. Anyway, to them, destroying the Dracula family would only bring them benefits. From the beginning to the end, His Holiness, the Pope, was only thinking about the benefits. However, he did not expect you to be so powerful that he could not even imagine it. 4 red-robed archbishops actually died at your hands. Your brilliance has already overshadowed everything in the Vatican. Chiyu, I didn't want to use you, and I didn't want you to get involved in the fight between me and Yamu. However, you came between us. I can't give up my only hope just because of your appearance. As for the rest, I'll let your beloved Rain Eyes tell you. I think it'll be clearer if she says it. After all, she's the one who arranged it all. Chiyu moved with difficulty. Lai Ji's gaze fell on Yumo. Say it. I'm waiting to hear it. Just like what Yiyun said, I hope to be a ghost who understands. The tears in Yumu's eyes paused for a moment. Do you really want to know? Chiyu looked at her calmly. What do you think? Miss, don't say it. Mephistopheles suddenly shouted. He knew that if this matter came from Yu Mao's mouth, then the blow to her heart would never be able to make up for. Towards Chiyu, Yumu not only felt a deep sense of guilt, but also a deep love for him. However, she had to give up her feelings for Chiyu because of her responsibility. It was a huge blow to her to have her tell how she schemed against and destroyed the person she loved. Even though she had become the goddess Athena, her heart was still a human's heart. A faint light appeared in Yumu's eyes. She took a deep breath, and the light in her eyes paused on Mephisto's face. Let me say it. Since this matter was caused by me, let me tell the truth to Chiyu. This is the only thing I can do for him. At this point, she looked at Chiyu in her arms, lowered her head, and kissed his forehead gently. Although her whole body was covered with the goddess Athena's armor, the expression on her face at this time was like a wife looking at her husband. Her beautiful eyes were shining, and she smiled slightly. Chiyu, I know you hate me. Actually, do you know? Even I can't forgive myself. When I first met you in Yanhuang, and later in the fight for the giant beast relic, the impression you left on me was the word powerful. At the same time, I felt threatened by you. I knew that although the overall strength of the Zodiac Guardian warriors was not comparable to Greece at that time, sooner or later, your strength would rise to the point where you could compete with me, or even surpass me. Therefore, at that time, I only felt vigilant towards you. That's why I decided to be your guide and let you come to Greece. Only after a period of contact can I understand you better and also understand the Guardians of the East. During the half a year of waiting, I could almost think of the problem between you and the Zodiac Guardian warriors every day. I was actually a little afraid of your arrival, but I was also looking forward to it. Finally, after waiting for a long time, you came. When I saw you for the second time, the feeling you gave me had changed a lot. The first time I saw you, the aura of a ruffian was very obvious. The second time I saw you, the aura of a ruffian was still there, but compared to the first time, you had a nobler aura. That wasn't a change in your aura, but from the inside out. It was also at that time that I thought of the plan and Mephisto's plan. Therefore, we had the battle in Parthenon. At the mention of home, Yumu slightly gasped for breath and adjusted the divine power that she had lost to Chiyu. Her eyes revealed a trace of strong light, and her hands were tightly pressed against Chiyu's chest and back. Even the shield of the goddess of victory in her hands was placed on the ground. There was a trace of a faint light in her eyes as she continued. In that battle, what I discovered was not how strong your strength was. Your strength has indeed reached a level comparable to mine. I don't have the confidence to win in a real battle. At the same time, more importantly, I've discovered the power that I've been hoping to obtain the most from you. Under the effect of that power, I can definitely achieve a qualitative leap in a short period of time. Become the real goddess Athena. That is your natural power. Natural power is the most peaceful kind of energy. This kind of energy doesn't resist my divine power at all. It can be like glue, completely binding me and my divine power together and completely fusing my energy with Athena's divine weapon. However, I also discovered that the natural power in your body is completely connected to your life aura. If I want to become the real goddess Athena under the effect of her natural power, then I must obtain all of your natural power, which is the source of your natural power. Therefore, when I complete the fusion, your life force will also be absorbed by me along with the natural source. Therefore, when I completed the fusion, your life force was also absorbed by me along with the origin of nature. There was a faint light in his eyes, and a trace of mockery appeared on Chi Yu's deathly still face. There was a faint light in his eyes, and a trace of mockery appeared on Chi Yu's deathly still face. Taking a deep breath, Yumu lowered her head and said, "Yes, what I really covet is the power of her natural source. I have indeed lied to you. In order to become Goddess Athena and obtain the gift's recognition, I can only rely on the power of your natural source. Although I already knew that Sister Yuyun could bring me the greatest power, I didn't expect her to bring me so much power. I didn't expect her to be able to bring so much. I also didn't expect that you would actually go to the Dark Council. If she had demonstrated it to me 3 days ago, and if she could have happened a little later, then you wouldn't have died. In that case, you won't die, and I might be able to preserve a little bit of your life force. However, it's too late to say anything now. Your body has already reached such a state, and the natural source is actually showing signs of exhaustion. In order to be able to fuse with Goddess Athena's divine weapon at the last moment, I had no choice but to use my own divine power to completely explode the power of the natural source when you couldn't resist it. Then, I completely absorbed your life force, your energy, and your natural source into my own body, allowing Goddess Athena's divine weapon to completely fuse with it at the last moment. Only then did I manage to achieve the greatest goddess power in one go. The light shone, and a faint light appeared in Chi Yu's eyes. I understand now. Your pursuit of power has caused you to give up everything. If my guess is correct, although you have been cultivating in my Kirin's pearl, you haven't fallen into a deep slumber. In fact, you haven't even completely lost your power. What you have shown me is only a facade. The reason why you didn't help me in my mini battles was because you were waiting for an opportunity. You were waiting for me to weaken during the battle. Once my power was weakened to a certain extent, and I couldn't resist your power, you would immediately take action and strip away my natural source and life force. After the battle with the Covenant of Darkness, I was unconscious for a period of time. I'm afraid there were two reasons why you didn't take action then. One was that my body was still weak, and the other was because of the Xin Yuan sword in my body. Just now, in order to defeat those birdmen, the Dark Soul used his own power to activate the Xin Yuan sword's powerful attack, which gave you the best opportunity. So, you told me to use my natural source to help you speed up the fusion, so that you could connect with my natural source and destroy me without hesitation. Am I right? Yamu stared blankly at Chiyu. Yes, everything you said is correct. That's how I schemed against you, the only man who has ever entered my heart. I don't want to know what happened between you and Yuyun anymore. If I'm the only one who dies, I won't even hate you. Yuyun is right. I'm an idiot. An idiot. Why would the heir to Goddess Athena fall in love with a ruffian like me? You said you fell in love with me? Even now, you still want to lie to me with such words? This was a trap from the start. You just wanted to make use of me. I'm such a joke. Goddess Athena, as one of the virgin goddesses, actually said that she wanted to be my fiancée, and I actually believed her. Yamu, if I was alone, I might even feel pity for you. But it's because of you and me that Klinsman died. He's dead, and Ming Ming and Christy are also heavily injured. This makes me feel like I've turned into a demon. I no longer have any power. Let go of your hand. I don't want to have any contact with you anymore. You're so holy and pure, and I'm just a ruffian, a guy who can't walk when he sees a woman. How can I have physical contact with a goddess like you? Chi Yu's defeated face was full of mockery. However, he wasn't mocking Yamu, but himself. Chi Yu. Yamu hugged Chi Yu's body tightly. Golden light was released from her body, and the three artifacts of Athena disappeared at the same time. Her graceful body was tightly attached to Chi Yu's body. I don't expect your forgiveness. The Four C's, want you to know that when everything is over, I'll go back to you. No matter where your soul is, I'll be by your side. If there's an afterlife, I'm willing to use my future eternity to repay my debt to you. Go. I don't want you to suffer any more pain. The hands that were infused with divine power turned into hugs. The golden light slowly spread, letting Chi Yu's head rest on her bouncy breasts. Yama's expression was very calm, but her eyes were abnormally empty. Quietly waiting for that moment to come. Yanwang Republic, Beijing. Wenting pushed open the door and walked into Snow Girl's room. After staying here for a long time, Snow Girl had decorated her room in elegant and cold colors, completely in line with her personality. Mom, you're here. Snow Girl smiled and met Wenting's gaze. Wenting made her way over to the Snow Maiden and sat down beside her. She glanced at the laptop that the Snow Maiden had been staring at earlier and said with a concerned expression, "Don't work too hard. The Kirin Corporation has already been fully registered, and the warehouse and some of the preparatory work are almost complete as well. All that's left is to transport those fruits back to the ancient beast era. It's been less than 2 months. It's already very difficult to do this. I don't want my baby daughter to be tired. Otherwise, when Chiyu comes back, I won't be able to explain it to him. Snow Girl held Wenting's hand and showed a sweet smile on her pretty face. How can that be? Even if I don't eat or sleep for a month, I won't have a problem. Mom, have you forgotten that I'm not a real human? Wenting said, I really didn't expect you to be so talented in business. Ryue only taught you some things, and you could digest and absorb it in such a short time. It seems that I can only use the word genius to describe my baby daughter. Snow Girl said, I just want to give Dad a surprise. I don't know when they'll come back. Speaking of this, Snow Girl's pretty face was obviously a little excited. Although Mo Dan was very rude to Chiyu, she didn't dare to delay after all. She immediately told Snow Girl and Wenting the news that Chiyu had rescued the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King. The arrival of this news made Snow Girl excited for a whole day. She was now looking forward to the return of her 2 fathers. Her biological father was rescued. There was some inexplicable change in her mentality. Her feelings for Chiyu also quietly sublimated. Kirin Group had been basically established during this period of time. With Hai Ryue's actions, the early stage of Kirin Group's recruitment had been completed. The group's address had also been set in advance. The registered capital was 100 million yuan. With this huge capital, coupled with Ryue's operation methods, the whole method was already on the right track. Now they were waiting for Chiyu to come back and transport the fruits back. Then they could start shooting the advertisement with Xiao Lu, who had signed a contract. During this period of time, although Wenting and Snow Girl missed Chiyu very much, they still felt that time passed very quickly because they had things to do. Wenting's novel was not strong in management, but Snow Girl had become a rare genius. With the help of Hai Ryue, the 2 women had become the chairman and general manager of Kirin Group. They both knew Chiyu very well. They knew that the establishment of Kirin Group was a career that he had to have as a man. Therefore, in the early stage of preparation, they put all their energy into it. Wenting smiled and said, It shouldn't be too long. Didn't Chiyu call? He said that he had to deal with something and would come back immediately. Snow Girl shook her head gently, and there was a worried look on her pretty face. Mom, I don't know why, but I always have a feeling of uneasiness in my heart. It seems that Dad will be in danger. Wenting's face changed slightly, and she comforted her. It won't be. With Chiyu's strength, even if he encounters a strong opponent, at least it will not be a problem for him to protect himself. What's more, he is a person who is good at creating miracles. He has returned from the era of ancient beasts, and he has the sharpness of a Xianyuan sword. I'm afraid it will not be easy for anyone in the West to threaten his life. The Snow Lady nodded and said, Let's hope so. At this moment, Wenting and Snow Girl's face changed at the same time, because they suddenly felt that there was an abnormal change in the surrounding space in an instant. The originally clean and fresh room suddenly became dark, and a strong, evil aura completely filled the room. Everything around it changed, and the huge energy aura made the 2 extraordinary women feel suffocated. The 2 looked at each other in shock, and in the darkness, there were 2 kinds of lights, one red and one blue. Wenting stood beside Snow Girl to protect her. Snow Girl coldly snorted, and her hands formed a strange seal in front of her chest. A dark green light gushed out from between her breasts and condensed into a round mirror in front of her chest. The dark green mirror was bright, and the evil aura immediately dispersed when it came in contact with the dark green light. Although it still surrounded their delicate bodies, the pressure was greatly reduced, and the light emitted by Wenting and Snow Girl suddenly increased. Wenting shouted in a low voice, Who is it? This was the Dragon Field Courtyard, and there were at least 5 Zodiac Guardian God warriors here. The other party was able to sneak in without a sound, and it could be seen how strong they were. With Wenting's strength, compared to the Zodiac Guardian God warriors, perhaps only Ryue could compare to her, but at this moment, she was still suppressed to the point where it was difficult to bear. This kind of tyrannical aura was something that even Chi-Yu couldn't achieve. She really couldn't imagine what kind of powerful evil force would come to cause trouble for her. A low voice sounded in the room. I have no evil intentions, but you don't have much time. The voice came from all directions, so Wen Ting and Snow Girl couldn't determine the other party's position. Wen Ting said coldly, Who are you? What's the point of hiding? Come out. You don't need to know who I am. You only need to know that Chi-Yu is in a life and death situation. If you want him to live, don't interrupt me. The low voice sounded very neutral, and it was hard to tell the gender of the person. Hearing this, Wen Ting and Snow Girl couldn't help but change their expressions. Snow Girl was the first to lose her patience and shouted, Tell me, what did you do to Dad? I don't believe you can hurt Dad. Although she said that, her heart was already trembling. After all, the enemy in front of them had already shocked them too much. With this kind of strength, it was definitely not impossible to deal with Chi-Yu. It's not that I did anything to them. It's that he brought himself to the abyss of death. Now, only you can save him. Watch. As he said that, the darkness in the room suddenly brightened. A circular light shone from the window, and the light gradually spread until it was a meter in diameter. At the beginning, the light in the circular light was blurry. Not long after, the light began to change. First, it was the scenery, followed by people. At this time, it was the moment when Chi-Yu's nature energy and life chi were being absorbed by Yamu. Wen Ting and Snow Girl's hearts tightened at the same time. They saw the green light condensing on Chi-Yu's body and the painful expression on Chi-Yu's face. Their hearts were in their throats, even though it was just an illusory scene. However, they knew very well that it was difficult to fake because Chi-Yu's nature energy was not something that outsiders could know. No, that's impossible. How did it become like this? Wen Ting and Snow Girl exclaimed in unison. The mysterious person did not speak, but the voice in the light in front of them already sounded. The entire process from Yamu rushing out from the Kirin Pearl to the showdown between Yu Yun and Yamu was displayed in front of the two girls. They clearly saw the despair and deathly stillness on Chi-Yu's face. Wen Ting's heart trembled. No, all of this is happening right now. Right now, the life chi in Chi-Yu's body has dried up. The energy in his body is also completely depleted, and the only people who can save his life are you. The deep voice sounded again. At this moment, Wen Ting and Snow Girl could not care less about the other party's identity. Wen Ting asked impatiently, How can we save Chi-Yu? What do you want in return? The deep voice said, I don't want anything. I just want to help you. Don't think that just because you have an evil aura, you must be an evil person. However, if you want to save him now, you must pay the price with your life. Chi-Yu, this fool, fought with so many powerful masters. His energy has been greatly depleted, and now, the Greek girl has absorbed all the essence in his body. His life chi has dried up. Even with my powerful strength, I can't save his life. To save him, there are only two ways. No one was more familiar with the aura of Chi-Yu than Wen Ting. She and Chi-Yu had both transformed into the sun, moon, and star's crimson gold armor. Looking at the image of Chi-Yu, she knew that what the mysterious man said was true. Chi-Yu was indeed at the critical moment of life and death. The life chi and Chi-Yu's origin of nature had been linked together. Once the life Chi-Yu's origin of nature was exhausted, the life Chi-Yu's origin of nature would naturally dry up. This situation was already a situation of certain death, so now she was completely confused. Hearing that there were two ways to save Chi-Yu, she immediately grasped at the life-saving straw and hurriedly asked, What are the ways? Please tell us. In order to save Chi-Yu, her tone was much gentler. The mysterious man said, The first way is to find the Nuwa stone. Not to mention that he is not dead yet. Even if he is dead, as long as his body is not decayed, the Nuwa stone can forcibly condense his soul and bring him back to life. The divine power in the Nuwa stone can reawaken his life and the origin of nature. At the same time, it can inject a certain amount of energy to completely restore his body functions. The hope that had just been ignited in Wen Ting and Snow Girl immediately cooled down after hearing this, as if it was poured with ice water. Although the Nuwa stone was only the last of the 10 great artifacts, without the energy support of Chi-Yu, it was impossible for them to return to the ancient beasts. Where could they find the Nuwa stone? Snow Girl said anxiously, "What is the second way?" The mysterious man sighed deeply and said, "Although the Nuwa stone is good, it is really difficult for you to get it, even with the Koan Song mirror. But the second way is easier, and it is also something that you can achieve. That is what I said before, you have to pay the price." Chi-Yu's current physical condition couldn't be worse. Not only was his energy exhausted, but more importantly, his life aura was fading with the origin of nature. To save him, you have to start from two aspects. First, you have to recondense his life aura. Second, you have to replenish a large amount of energy for his body and integrate it with a new life aura. Only in this way can his energy aura be restored. But Chi-Yu's life aura is integrated with the energy of nature. Therefore, in order to recondense his life aura, you have to first reawaken the origin of nature. This requires the purest and largest amount of energy of nature and life aura. In this world, I am afraid that only you, the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus, can do this. Only the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that you are endowed with can reignite his life aura in the dead silence. As for replenishing energy, the first thing you have to do is to make sure that it does not conflict with his original aura, and you have to be familiar with his energy characteristics without consuming a large amount of energy. In order to achieve this, the giant beast relic is obviously the best choice. Now, do you understand what I mean? When Ting looked at Snow Girl, Snow Girl's eyes were a little dull, but there was a very gentle look in the depths of her eyes. When Ting said, "Must it be the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus? What if it is only the giant beast relic?" "Mother, I am willing to give up everything for father." Snow Girl woke up from her daze and looked at Wen Ting. Two streams of tears flowed down her pretty face. Her mind was filled with everything that had happened since she met Chi-Yu. In a low voice, she said, "Of course not, otherwise I wouldn't have said it. Without the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus as a guide, even if your giant beast relic can bring more energy to Chi-Yu, it is impossible for him to stay. It will only quickly disappear. At most, it will prolong his life for a period of time. It cannot solve the problem. If we want him to be reborn, we need the two of you." Hearing this, Wen Ting suddenly became clear-headed and said coldly, "What's the point of saying so much? We can all see Chi-Yu's situation. He is currently in the West, and it is impossible for him to wait for us to arrive. If that was the case, I would not have said so much to you. I have a way to send you to his side immediately. As for how you decide, it is up to you." "Chi Xian, that idiot, Sai." The mysterious voice disappeared, and the huge, evil energy in the air began to fluctuate violently. The light and shadow at the window had disappeared when the evil energy fluctuated, and all the evil energy gathered there, forming a huge black vortex. Chapter 208. Wen Ting and Snow Girl looked at each other. Even though they felt a little uneasy in the face of this evil aura, Chi-Yu looked so dangerous in the image that they had no time to think about it. The two women moved almost at the same time and floated into the black vortex. The evil aura flowed, and the vortex swallowed their bodies in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the two women disappeared along with the black aura, and the room returned to normal. Chi-Yu did not close his eyes. The last bit of death energy in his body could no longer sustain his life. After all, no matter what kind of energy it was, it needed a carrier to keep it from dissipating. Now that he had lost the most basic life energy of a human, he no longer had this carrier. At the same time, he had completely lost his bodily functions. Yemo looked at Chi-Yu with tearful eyes. At this last moment, she hoped that every part of Chi-Yu would be deeply imprinted in her memory. Although she had successfully obtained the divine artifact of the goddess Athena, there was a flaw in her divine spark, and this flaw was Chi-Yu. Even if Chi-Yu died, this flaw would exist forever. Just as everyone quietly looked at the dying Chi-Yu, just as Yu Yin recalled everything that had happened between him and Chi-Yu, and recalled the heroic manner in which Chi-Yu defeated 4 red-robed bishops by himself. Just as everyone was waiting for death to come to him, something strange suddenly happened. Light flickered, and the sky suddenly darkened. Pope Marty's expression changed slightly. He looked up into the sky, and the divine energy that had locked onto the 5 constellation guardians suddenly shrouded the sky. However, his expression immediately changed, because the powerful pressure that appeared in the sky was something that even he could not resist. The pressure that was filled with evil aura only lasted for a moment before disappearing. Then, a huge black vortex appeared out of thin air, and the tip of the vortex, which was also the source of the vortex, actually pierced Chi Yu's chest at lightning speed. Yama's body trembled. She had already retracted the 3 divine artifacts of Athena, and she felt a strong vibration force pushing her body away. Just like Malti, she also noticed the tyrannical power of the evil energy. At this moment, her mind was completely focused on Chi Yu. Unable to react in time, she was sent flying. She flipped a few times in the air and landed on the ground like a fairy descending from the 9 heavens. The black vortex only appeared for a moment before disappearing. She disappeared into Chi Yu's chest. At this time, Chi Yu's body did not fall to the ground because of Yama's departure. 2 graceful figures appeared beside him, and the red figure hugged him tightly. Another blue figure appeared beside him. Chi Yu, Wen Ting cried out in sorrow. The figures who suddenly appeared were Wen Ting and Snow Girl. Although they did not know what force sent them there, it was proven that everything they saw was real. When Wen Ting came into contact with Chi Yu's body, she immediately felt the current state of Chi Yu's body. Chi Yu's originally calm and dead eyes suddenly widened a little. Looking at Wen Ting and Snow Girl, there was a hint of life in her eyes. PM Chongbao. However, that hint of life was filled with guilt. Why are you guys here? The energy before her death could no longer support her to speak clearly. Wen Ting shook her head forcefully. It was the first time she saw Chi Yu in such a weak state. Even when Chi Yu used the ultimate Kirin's arm and later fought against the Bull Demon King during the Ancient Beast era, he had never been like this. Every inch of her skin and every cell was filled with the aura of death. Daddy, Daddy, how did you become like this? Snow Girl held Chi Yu's big hand tightly. Her cold little hand was constantly trembling. Chi Yu sighed deeply. I can only blame myself for all this. I thought too much and I was too stupid. I'm sorry, Ting Ting, Snow Girl. After I die, you must take good care of yourselves. If there's an afterlife, I will use all my time to make up for the friendship you've shown me in this life. No, I don't want an afterlife. I only want this life. Daddy, you're the one who kept me alive. You're the one who made me return to normal. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I'd still be living in fear and confusion. Daddy, for you, Snow Girl is willing to pay any price. Daddy, you won't die. You'll never die. Daddy, do you know that? In fact, after I woke up, after we reached the Ancient Beast era, I've already... At this point, Snow Girl's eyes suddenly lit up. Her shining eyes turned completely ice blue. She said to Chi Yu in an extremely firm tone, Daddy, I love you. Chi Yu's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Wen Ting, who was supporting him and constantly pouring energy into his body, also trembled slightly. Chi Yu and Wen Ting felt completely different. In Chi Yu's mind, Snow Girl was clearly expressing her love to him. However, Wen Ting felt completely different. In fact, how could she not see that Snow Girl's feelings for Chi Yu were no longer that of a father and daughter? However, she did not point it out. PM Pet Treasure? At this time, Snow Girl bravely spoke out her inner thoughts. She had already made up her mind to exchange her life for Chi Yu's. Looking at Snow Girl, Wen Ting's heart was filled with gratitude. She had already thought that if everything was true, Snow Girl would definitely do that. Everyone has a selfish side, and Wen Ting was no exception. She did not stop Snow Girl. She just looked at Snow Girl quietly with the same resolute light in her eyes. For the man in front of her, not only Snow Girl, but she was also willing to give up everything. At least compared to her own parents, they still loved each other. A smile appeared on Snow Girl's pretty face, and she said softly, Dad, can you remember how Snow Girl looks like forever? Don't ever forget that you once had a daughter like me in your life. Dad, I really love you. You must live well. No matter what, Snow Girl will be watching you from heaven." At this point, the blue light on Snow Girl's body began to change. Her body was gradually disappearing. It was condensing on the ground. Everyone, including Yamu, Yiyun, and Malti, were stunned. No one expected such a change to happen. Their emotions changed slightly as they listened to the Snow Lady's parting words. None of them moved. They just stood to the side and watched silently as if they were spectators. She had a bad feeling. The deathly stillness in her eyes suddenly turned into anxiety. "Snow Girl, don't." At this moment, an old voice suddenly sounded. "Silly child, you're still young. Why do you have to do this? Let me do it." A faint blue light surged out from Chi Yu's chest. While the Snow Lady was still in shock, her transformation actually stopped the moment she came into contact with the blue light. When she came into contact with the blue light, her body instantly returned to its original state. Her beautiful face was filled with excitement as she looked at the blue light in front of her. The Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch appeared out of thin air. Everything that happened in the outside world had awakened him from his slumber. When Snow Girl arrived, he could already feel his daughter's aura. At the same time, he was selfish. He already knew Chi Yu's situation and how to save her life, but he could not bear to part with his daughter. He could not bear to part with his hard-earned freedom. So, he chose to remain silent in the face of such a painful choice. However, when he heard Snow Girl's words, he understood that Chi Yu had not only saved him, but also Snow Girl. The lives of his father and his daughter were saved by this powerful man in front of him. How could he remain silent? So he came out. Snow Girl and the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch looked at each other. Snow Girl softly said, "Father Yu, you've finally been saved." The Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch raised his hand and gently patted his daughter's shoulder. His eyes were filled with fatherly love. "Little girl, you've grown up. In the future, you must take good care of yourself. Father is already old. Our Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch is the noblest race of plants. We can't owe others anything. From now on, you only have one father. Live well. Father's spirit in heaven hopes to see you happy forever. Don't be sad, because when father and you become one, you can treat him as your biological father. Or you can also become his woman. Although he's a bit silly, but he's also the only man I've ever seen who's worthy of our Snow Girl." Snow Girl's delicate body trembled. She suddenly found that her body was completely unable to move. Ever since her body had been transformed by Chi Yu's source of nature, Snow Girl's strength was no less than her father's. But the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch was her father. How could she be on guard against him? She was suddenly enveloped by the blue light. Although she could feel the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch's thoughts, she was powerless to stop it. Even her ability to speak had been sealed by the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch. Tears continuously flowed down Snow Girl's face. The Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch took a step forward and hugged her daughter's shoulder. Then, he planted a kiss on her forehead and resolutely turned around to face Chi Yu. He knew that if he kept looking at his daughter, perhaps he would never be able to make up his mind. "You've saved Snow Girl. You've also saved me. I won't say any words of thanks. I'll use everything I have to repay you for everything you've done for us. Take good care of our daughter for me, okay?" The two men's eyes met. The Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch suddenly felt very calm. He smiled. It was a smile that came from the bottom of his heart. Looking at Chi Yu, he had a premonition that this man would never let his daughter suffer the slightest grievance. The blue light once again lit up, but this time it was no longer Snow Girl. Instead, it was the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch who had just been rescued by Chi Yu from the Dark Parliament. His handsome face had a smile, as if he was facing death calmly. He deeply looked into Chi Yu's grayish-white eyes. Chi Yu gasped violently. At this time, he already understood that Snow Girl and the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus Monarch were doing the same thing. No! With great difficulty, Chi Yu struggled to stand up from Wen Ting's embrace. Originally, he had completely given up hope for his life. Suddenly, a strong desire to live rose in his heart. But, with his current physical condition, how could he stand up? Wen Ting's face was already covered in tears. She muttered the two words, "Thank you." She couldn't stop the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch. As long as Qi Yu lost the support of her energy, he would immediately die. Although the energy that entered his body would also pass away, but after all, it was the same source of energy. Qi Yu's body had already been stimulated by Wen Ting's energy. He was already on the verge of death. Not to mention, how could she stop it? This was related to her lover. The blue light condensed on the ground into a huge flower with a diameter of 1/2 meter. This snow lotus had the color of an ice crystal. Each petal looked so crystal clear, so moving. In the center of each ice blue petal was a silver stamen. This was the symbol of the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch. Only when the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus, reached the king level would the stamen change from white to silver. The huge flower floated up, and the ice blue aura enveloped Qi Yu's body. The tears in Snow Girl's eyes couldn't stop falling. Under the influence of her own energy, they condensed into beads of ice in the air and fell to the ground. The Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch's body, slowly rotated in the air. The ice blue light floated down, and the silver stamen transformed into a thread that entered Qi Yu's mouth. At the same time, the surrounding blue petals began to quickly shrink, condensing towards the center. Under the guidance of the silver stamen, drops of blue liquid flowed into Qi Yu's mouth. The sweet and cool liquid flowed into Qi Yu's dry mouth. Immediately, his body began to tremble violently. The energy that was filled with life energy fully nourished his body, nourishing every cell in his body. The huge amount of life energy first spread to his limbs and bones, calling out to Qi Yu's life force. When Qi Yu's limbs and bones began to fill with life energy, the huge amount of life energy once again condensed into his dantian. The life energy fused with the original source of nature energy in Qi Yu's body. The Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch, a heavenly treasure that had existed for tens of thousands of years. Its energy was completely absorbed from nature's heaven and earth spiritual qi, and this heaven and earth spiritual qi was undoubtedly filled with life energy. At this time, this huge amount of life energy, along with the vast heaven and earth spiritual qi, constantly filled Qi Yu's body. The Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch in the air disappeared. Just as it had said, it had already completely fused with Qi Yu's body. Although it had lost consciousness, it had also survived in a different state within Qi Yu's body. It had turned into Qi Yu's life energy, once again supporting its body that was on the verge of collapse. After all, reincarnation was one of the 3 great divine fruits bestowed by the heavens. Although the energy and aura of the origin of nature had accompanied Qi Yu's life energy, it had been completely absorbed by Yamu. But the source of the origin of nature would not disappear. What Yamu had obtained was only energy. But the source of the origin of nature was still within Qi Yu's body. It was just that it had already dried up. The energy of the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch, was like a clear stream, once again awakening the dried-up source of the origin of nature. A faint green light began to rise in front of Qi Yu's chest and abdomen, greedily absorbing the life energy brought by the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch. The deathly stillness in Qi Yu's body suddenly disappeared a little, and the seed of life began to reappear within his body. But the life of the seed required energy. Without the support of energy, although the delicate seed still had a tail, it would quickly wither. Feeling the changes in Qi Yu's body, Wen Ting smiled with relief. From a moment she had appeared until the moment the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus Monarch, had sacrificed its life, she had not said a single word. She did not blame Qi Yu, nor did she blame him for making himself like this because of another woman. When she clearly discovered that the seed of life had begun to have a tail, she began to tighten her grip on Qi Yu's body. Holding Qi Yu, she stood up straight and pressed her delicate body completely against his back. Don't be sad, don't be sad. Perhaps all of this is destined by the heavens. Qi Yu, you are a man. I believe you will definitely stand up again, right? Don't do stupid things. One day when you really reach that realm, I will definitely stand in front of you, alive and well. The fiery red energy began to burn. What Wen-Ting was burning was her own body. In an instant, the clothes on her body disappeared. Wen-Ting's body had already become like a sparkling ruby. That huge temperature even made Yamu involuntarily take a few steps back. Looking at Wen-Ting and the snow girl in front of Chi-Yu, her dull eyes revealed a trace of ecstasy. But in that ecstasy, there was also a deep loneliness and a trace of fear. Ting-Ting, quickly stop. Don't be like this. If you sacrifice yourself to save me, then I will also not live alone. Chi-Yu's heart was shocked. At this moment, he had already completely understood the snow girl and Wen-Ting's actions. In order to save him, they actually had to sacrifice 2 lives. He regretted, really regretted. If it wasn't because he was too soft on women and didn't have enough space for Yamu. How could they become like this? Wen-Ting did not stop her actions. Fool, it's too late. I have already ignited my own relic. Although I have completely absorbed the energy of the Almighty Beast relic, my entire body is still that of the Almighty Beast relic. As long as you can live, no matter what price I have to pay, I am willing. I'm willing. Don't be silly. I won't really die. Have you forgotten? I have told you before, if you are willing, even if I lose my body, my spirit will still live in your heart. Work hard. I hope to see my man standing at the peak. At that time, perhaps you will have enough power to resurrect me and reconstruct my body. I will quietly wait in your body for that moment to come. Chi-Yu, take good care of our baby daughter. Take good care of yourself. At the same time that the ruby body turned dark red, the burning red light began to merge with Chi-Yu's body as if it was melting. An incomparably large amount of energy condensed into a huge dark red cocoon, enveloping Chi-Yu's body completely. His body could no longer be seen from the outside. The instant before Chi-Yu's body disappeared from the dark red cocoon, Yamu clearly saw a pair of reddish-gold wings emerge from Chi-Yu's back, shining with a faint light. All the energy in the dark red cocoon was completely condensed and did not radiate outwards. The faint light began to fluctuate continuously, and every time it fluctuated, there would be a slight change. Suddenly, a red cloud appeared in the sky, like a burning cloud, floating above the dark red cocoon. With the dark red cocoon as the center, the air around it began to distort violently. The light shone brightly, like a giant ruby standing there, unmoving. As the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus King's body completely disappeared, and its energy was completely assimilated by Chi-Yu, the restrictions he had on Snow Girl also disappeared. Snow Girl cried out in sorrow and fell to her knees. Even though the light from the dark red cocoon made her feel extremely uncomfortable, she did not have the slightest intention of leaving. It had been so many years, and she had finally seen her biological parents again, but all she had done was say a few words, and her father had left her forever. She would rather be the one to disappear. Tears flowed down her face, and Snow Girl's mind began to waver. In her extreme sorrow, she had even forgotten to protect Wen-Ting and Snow Girl. Yuyun raised her hand to cover her mouth. Her eyes, red from crying, revealed a strange light. There was envy and jealousy in that light, but most of it was confusion. Ever since she had found out about her birth, she had been constantly working hard to get the goddess of Athena back. Everything she had done was for this goal. However, at this moment, she realized that her inner world was so empty. She secretly asked herself, if it was her, would she have risked her life to save Chi-Yu? She had naturally seen Wen-Ting before. The former English teacher, the former #1 beauty of Qingbei University. For Chi-Yu, she had unhesitatingly sacrificed her precious life, burning herself as the price to inject energy into Chi-Yu's body. Was she stupid? No, she was not stupid. Everything she had done was also for the sake of a belief. But what had she done? How sad, how lamentable. Was obtaining the goddess of Athena really that important to her? If it wasn't for the fight between her and Yamu, how could everything have happened today? Yuyun's heart had changed in a special way, but Yamu's pain was much deeper than hers. She had harmed Chiyu. In order to obtain more power, she had harmed the man she had fallen in love with. And a woman who also loved him was willing to sacrifice her life for him. Although she was now the real goddess of Athena, Yamu suddenly felt that she was so small in front of Wenting. He still has a chance to live. Miss Yamu, we must take action. The dark red cocoon formed in front of Marty's eyes, and he immediately woke up. Even if he could summon the two strongest archangels at the same time, he definitely did not have the confidence to win against an Eastern powerhouse who could defeat 4 red-cloaked archbishops. Chiyu's power filled his heart with a sense of danger, so he immediately reminded Yamu, who was beside him. Yamu could no longer breathe due to the pain in her heart. She looked at Marty with a blank and lifeless gaze. Despicable, Yuyun shouted angrily, pointing at Marty. I'm ashamed to have a leader like you in the Vatican. Don't you think that your inner world is too despicable and shameless? What did Chiyu do wrong? If it wasn't for him, would Yamu have such power now? You've already used him to achieve your goal. Now that he finally has a chance to live, you still want to destroy him? Marty said coldly. If he dies, everything will be very peaceful. But if he really survives, Miss Yuyun, have you ever thought about what would happen? If a super powerhouse like him insists on taking revenge, even if Miss Yamu has become the real goddess Athena, I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for her to do so. Moreover, this person still has a powerful force in the East. Once he makes a comeback, it will be a huge crisis for the Western world. Yamu's gaze gradually brightened as she looked at Marty. Could she really lay her hands on Chiyu? Could she still? No, definitely not. Yamu firmly told herself in the depths of her heart. In order to become the real goddess Athena, she had already harmed the man she loved deeply once. But that was because she had no other choice. If she did not absorb the energy of the entire origin of nature, she would not be able to fuse with the divine weapon. However, it was different now. Chiyu had a chance to live. Now that she had woken up, her heart was filled with joy and excitement. Although she knew that Chiyu would never forgive her, and she did not have any extravagant hopes, the joy that came from the bottom of her heart still eased a lot of the pain in her heart. Just as Yamu was about to speak, Yuyun interrupted. Let's make a deal, Yamu. Yamu was stunned. Deal? What kind of deal? Yuyun took a deep breath. She suddenly realized that her ambition and the hatred in her heart had completely disappeared after seeing Wenting sacrifice her life for Chiyu. Let Chiyu go. As long as you're willing to let Chiyu go, I will never have any other thoughts in the future. I will willingly become the constellation guardian of Gemini. Your 12 constellation guardians will also be completely loyal to you. Yamu looked at her in shock. She did not expect Yuyun to say such a thing. She felt that it was a little strange. Sister, Yuyun said coldly, otherwise, even if I die, I will not return to Greece. Malty's expression changed. Miss Yamu, Yamu shook her head, stopping Malty from speaking any further. Her figure flashed, and she appeared beside the dark red cocoon. She said in a low voice, Your Highness, thank you for your help this time. Greece will always remember your friendship. However, for the sake of the Constellation Guardians, I have already made up my mind. I hope you can understand. Looking at Yamu's determined gaze, then looking at the dark red cocoon, Malty sighed. In that case, if there are any problems in the future, I hope Miss Yamu will take the initiative to bear it. After saying that, he no longer had any reason to stay here. The scepter in his hand emitted 4 beams of holy light, and his body disappeared. Under the shroud of the 4 beams of holy light, the unconscious bodies of the 4 cardinals were taken away by him at the same time. Less than a minute after the Pope left, the dark red light suddenly disappeared, and Wenting's figure disappeared. Chiyu stood there with a blank expression. His body was completely naked, and his gaze was terrifyingly calm. Behind him, a pair of pure gold wings spread out on both sides of his body. He pulled Snowgirl over and turned his gaze to Yamu. A voice that sounded like it came from the depths of hell came out of his mouth. On the 10th of January next year, bring your Constellation Guardians to the summit of Mount Everest to end everything between us. Chapter 209. Mephistopheles said anxiously, Miss, we can't let him leave. Otherwise, he knew how terrifying Chiyu was. Although he had regained his life, he was obviously very weak. If they didn't take this opportunity to destroy him, it would be a terrible thing to face such a powerful enemy in the future. Moreover, Chi had already issued a challenge to the Constellation Guardians. Yumao gently shook her head. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She raised her right hand and used her sleeve to wipe away the tears on her face. At the same time, her white and charming face lost all of its emotions, and the sacred aura became stronger. Her eyes flashed, and she looked at Chiyue deeply and said, "All right, on the 10th of January next year, we will definitely be there. Goodbye, Mr. Chi." After saying this, she turned around and walked away without looking back. Chiyu. Yuyin wanted to say something, but when the words were at the tip of her tongue, she swallowed them in the end. She looked at Chiyu and sighed. At the same time, she shook her head and followed behind Yumu. Mephistopheles hesitated for a moment, whether to attack Chiyu or not. Even if he disobeyed Yumu's order, he would still destroy him here. However, he condensed his energy several times, and, in the end, he didn't make a move. In fact, how could he not sympathize with Chiyu's experience? For the sake of the Greek Guardian to become stronger, they had deeply hurt the other party who should have been their ally. He shook his head helplessly and left with the Constellation Guardians behind Yumu and her sister. Chiyu was still watching them until they disappeared from his sight. He raised his hand and hugged the tearful snow girl into his arms. Gently stroking her ice-blue hair, he said, "Everything that I've suffered today, I'll definitely pay them back in double in the near future. Snow girl, Daddy won't say anything else. Let's go home, Daddy. Your biological father also died for me. I will replace him and protect you for the rest of your life. I swear on Kieran's life that from now on, I will never let you get hurt again." Snow girl hugged Chiyu's shoulder. She burst into tears. Chiyu didn't say anything else. The reddish-gold wings on his back flapped, and he soared into the sky with Snow Girl flying into the distance. He didn't take a plane again. Instead, he took Snow Girl with him. Relying on his flying ability, he flew towards the east. Right now, what he needed was silence. He needed to calm himself down and think clearly about everything that had happened today. Flying in the air, Chiyu released the energy in his body. No country's radar could detect his presence. At the same time, he kept Snow Girl, who was weary from crying, into his Kieran Pearl. At this moment, his heart was abnormally calm. As the saying goes, there's nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. If he really died, he wouldn't feel as much pain as he did now. Yumu's betrayal filled his heart with a deathly stillness. He knew that he was too naive when it came to love. Perhaps it was because he had never been hurt in love before, so he fell into Yumu's trap this time. At this moment, he couldn't help but think of everything that had happened after when Ting protected him. At that time, the breath of life in his body was awakened by the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, and his body had regained all kinds of functions. But at that time, Chi was more afraid than when he was about to die, because when Ting's life had begun to flow into his body, the woman he loved the most had sacrificed her life for him. Even if he didn't die, what kind of blow would he have to bear? Wen Ting was the woman Chiyu loved deeply. Until that moment, Chiyu suddenly felt that he owed so much to the woman who loved him deeply. First there was Ming Ming, then there was Ryue, and then there was Wen Ting. But what about him? Did he bear the responsibility that a man should bear? Was he worthy of the love of so many women? Chiyu's heart was very painful. Wen Ting transformed into a giant beast, completely burning her body in the huge true fire, completely turning her body into a body of energy and fusing with Chiyu. At that time, not only did Chiyu obtain a huge amount of energy, but he also obtained Wen Ting's emotions. Wen Ting didn't blame him in the slightest. Instead, she used incomparably gentle emotions to gently comfort his wounded heart. Whether it was anger, hatred, or any other negative emotions, they were gradually soothed by Wen Ting's most gentle emotional comfort. That was why his heart could calm down. The energy, like Wen Ting's, was not directly absorbed by his body. Instead, it condensed into a ruby in his dantian, quietly floating in his dantian. At that time, Although Chi-Yu's life force had recovered, because of his previous exhaustion, his body could no longer withstand such a huge amount of energy. As long as there was this energy that could support his life, it was enough. He needed to wait until the energy of the source of nature was strong again. Then he could change his body. Only then could he gradually absorb the energy brought by Wenting and turn it into his own energy. Yamu, Yun, these two names were deeply imprinted in Chi-Yu's mind. At this moment, he had finally become a real mature man. His mentality had undergone a complete change compared to before. The ruffian look on his face had disappeared along with the deathly stillness of his body. His calm face seemed to have a somewhat serious aura. At the same time, many things had increased and decreased in the depths of his heart. After flying continuously for a full 3 days, Chi-Yu flew from London all the way back to the capital of the Yanhuang Republic, the capital city. As he floated down, his aura had become much better. In these 3 days, his body had condensed a fifth of the natural energy that was equivalent to his peak state, and the thundercloud force had also recovered about 30% along with his body's recovery. The Draconic Field courtyard was still as beautiful as ever. In the courtyard full of plants, Yin Xiaoi, Hu Guang, Ian, and Vol were practicing their combat skills. Damn, Lil E, you're too despicable. How dare you sneak attack me in a sparring match? Vol said angrily as he glared at Yin Xiaoi. Zagru was stunned for a moment. He had never felt that Chi-Yu valued the pursuit of power so much. He walked to Chi-Yu's side and held his left hand. His index finger, middle finger, and thumb pinched the Sarira bead on Chi-Yu's wrist. A faint Buddhist aura was transmitted from his palm into Chi-Yu's body. Under the stimulation of the Buddhist aura, the Sarira bead emitted a layer of gentle light and transmitted into Chi-Yu's body. The Buddhist aura circulated from his wrist to every corner of Chi-Yu's body. Chi-Yu subconsciously closed his eyes and felt the Buddhist energy circulating within his body. His exhausted body immediately felt much more comfortable, especially the Buddhist energy's comforting effect on his mind. It greatly calmed the turbulent emotions in his heart over the past few days. After a long time, Zagru chanted and released Chi-Yu's hand. Your body's condition is very bad. Fortunately, the aura of the origin of nature is still operating automatically, but your own thundercloud force is greatly restricted. Have you noticed this problem? Chi-Yu nodded. That's true. My current thundercloud force is only about 1/3 of its best state. When I was in the West, my strength once broke through to the 7-cloud level, but because of the influence of my physical condition, it has now fallen back to the 6-cloud level. Even I don't know why. Zagru said, since you have the energy of the origin of nature, the 4 thundercloud force in your body can coordinate with each other. As long as your overall strength reaches a certain level, it will naturally be promoted to the next level. You don't need to cultivate one thundercloud force at a time like before. But now your situation is obviously different. The 4 thundercloud force are not balanced at all, which is also the reason why your strength has declined. I can feel a special energy in your body through the Buddhist aura. It's full of evil feeling. Although it's not very strong, it is deeply entrenched in your heart. Even my Buddhist aura can't remove it. Although this evil aura won't affect your strength, it has a strong interference to your mind. Tell me, what did you encounter in the West this time? I think the disappearance of Wenting and Snow Girl should be related to you. Chi-Yu nodded his head and said, Great Master, once everyone has arrived, I will tell them everything that has happened. Now, can you tell me how to improve my overall strength, or to improve the overall strength of our Zodiac Guardian warriors? Zagru thought for a while and said, There are 2 ways to improve the overall strength of the Zodiac Guardian warriors. One is to greatly improve the strength of each Zodiac Guardian warrior. The other is to make the Zodiac Guardian warriors truly become a whole under your guidance. Now that the 12 Zodiac Guardian warriors have truly become a whole, they can exert greater strength. Now that the 12 Zodiac Guardian warriors are Chi-Yu, it's time to impart your fusion skill to you. You should remember what I told you before. When all the Zodiac Guardian warriors appear, Kirin's support ability will be revealed. You are the core of all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Only under your leadership can the Zodiac Guardian Warriors exert the most powerful attack power, right? Chiyu nodded and said, "You told me this before. Then, are you referring to an ability similar to a domain with me as the core?" Zagru looked at Chiyu in surprise and said, "How do you know?" "That is indeed the case," Chiyu said indifferently, "because I have seen this ability on Athena and her 12 Zodiac Guardians. Athena's ability is called the Signs of the Zodiac Domain. Since the West has this ability, there is no reason why the East doesn't have it. However, there is a problem. The strength of the Zodiac Guardians is not that different. Although their abilities are different, their overall strength is very balanced. However, our Zodiac Guardian Warriors are not like this. The weakest one might not even be able to fight to the death. The strongest one, Ryue, is already at the 7-cloud level. With such a difference, can our domain really exert its power?" Zagru smiled mysteriously and said, "Since the day the Zodiac Guardian Warriors appeared, our ancestors have been constantly perfecting the Zodiac Guardian Warrior system. What you said is not a problem. Wait until I tell you how to use the full power of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Then you will understand." The faint light gradually became stronger. A soft white light enveloped Chiyu and Zagru. His lips moved. Zagru began to explain something to Chiyu. Chiyu listened attentively. At the same time, his expression was very serious. Relying on his spiritual force that was far stronger than ordinary people, he clearly imprinted every word that Grandmaster Zagru said into his mind. A faint light flickered. Chiyu's eyes revealed a trace of light. As Zagru became more familiar with him, the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. "This is my last mission as this generation's Skyene. I have already taught you everything I know. From now on, you must bear the responsibility that a Kirin should bear. That year, when I became a Skyene, I never thought that this generation's Kirin would be so strong. In such a short time, your strength has even increased to the 7-cloud level. Even if the other Zodiac Guardian Warriors join forces, they may not be able to hurt you. I think that in the battle methods of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors passed down from ancient times, there should be some changes. Combined with your powerful strength, you should be able to produce some changes. As the strongest amongst the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, you might be able to turn from a pure support ability to the strongest point. As for how to help, you can only rely on yourself to discover it. Chiyu, Grandmaster, I am a little lost in cultivation. Although my foundation is Kirin's thundercloud force, since I obtained the origin of nature, I found that its effect is even stronger than my Kirin's thundercloud force. In the past, my main attack ability was Kirin's arm and some Kirin skills. However, after obtaining the origin of nature, I can freely transform these thundercloud force. Coupled with the tyrannical attack power of the Xianyuan sword, my Kirin skills have become useless. Only the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm can be of some use. So, if this continues, will I be a real Kirin? Should I simply give up on a use of Kirin's skills and focus on a use of the Xianyuan sword? Zagru looked at Chiyu, and after pondering for a while, he said sternly, "Chiyu, you can't do that." Listening to Zagru's affirmative tone, Chiyu's expression changed slightly. "Why?" Zagreus said, "The reason is very simple. It's because you aren't an ordinary Qilin warrior, and you've even been to the era of the ancient beasts. I'm afraid that you haven't seen a single for auspicious cloud Qilin there. Although your current strength is not weak, you have not practiced Kirin's thundercloud force to its peak. How do you know that Kirin's ability is useless to you? Moreover, don't forget that you are Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds. The first 4 auspicious clouds inked Kirin in history. How do you know what kind of changes will occur when your strength reaches its peak? Therefore, I believe that Kirin's skills must not be given up." Chiyu thought for a while and said, "The soul of the Xianyuan sword and the Xianyuan sword once told me that in my current situation, even if I cultivate to the strongest level of the 9 clouds, I am afraid that I can only use the 3rd sword of the 8 swords of the Xianyuan sword. If that's the case, then the Qilin strength is far inferior to the Xianyuan sword, a divine weapon of this level. What I need to do is to improve my energy to a higher level. The scene of the soul of the Xianyuan sword using the power of the origin to activate the god-punishing formation was deeply imprinted in his mind. That moment of destruction had already been imprinted in his mind. To him, this was too shocking. If he could freely use the god execution array, even if those archangels descended to the human world, he wouldn't have to be afraid of anything. Compared to the god executioner formation, his Kirin strength was far too inferior. They weren't even on the same level. Zagru shook his head and said, "No, Chiyu, you are wrong. Actually, this cannot be blamed on you. After all, the Xianyuan mystical sword is one of the strongest immortal treasures in the history of Yanhuan. Its might is absolutely terrifying. Once you touch it and use its formidable power, you will definitely be able to escape." It was inevitable that he would have doubts about his own strength. However, your way of thinking is wrong. First of all, Xuanyuan's soul is the soul of Xuanyuan's sword. Its estimation of your strength is based on your strength and situation at the time, as well as your understanding of the Kirin clan. However, you are not an ordinary Kirin. You are the 4 lucky clouds in Kirin. In the memories of the soul of the Xianyuan sword, there will be no record of your true strength when you reach your peak. Although the black sword is strong, it is ultimately a mortal treasure and not you. If you pursue too much integration with it or use it, then you will naturally neglect your own cultivation. In such a situation, you will definitely not be able to tap into your own potential. You can be said to be born out of necessity. If my guess is right, there will definitely be some changes in the future with you, the 4 lucky clouds in Kirin. Moreover, in the last few clouds, the increase in strength of each cloud is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Although you only need to increase your overall strength to bring your own strength to a new level, after reaching the 7th cloud, is the increase in your strength as high as I told you before. Although the effect of integrating with the origin of nature is great, to a certain extent, it has affected the improvement of your own thundercloud force. Think about it carefully, and it means that there is a problem in your cultivation. Before you truly reach the peak of Kirin's realm, I don't recommend you to give up the research of Kirin's strength. On the other hand, if you put all your energy into the research of Kirin's thundercloud force, it will definitely have a positive effect on your use of the Xianyuan sword in the future. Just now, you said that if you want to increase your absolute strength, what better way is there than through the cultivation of Kirin's thundercloud force? At your current level, it would be extremely difficult for you to use other methods to increase your strength. There's a shortcut, but you don't want to take it. Do you want to take a detour? After listening to Zagru's words, Chiyu suddenly felt enlightened, and the path in front of him seemed to have completely lit up. Yes, when he felt that his strength had risen to the 7-cloud realm, although his strength had increased greatly, now that he thought about it, it seemed to have only increased by 5 times of the original 6-cloud realm. One must know that the difference between the 7-cloud realm and the 6-cloud realm was magnificent compared to the difference between the 5-cloud realm and the 7-cloud realm. The 7-cloud realm could be said to be a watershed in the cultivation of all the Zodiac guardian warriors, especially for Kirin. Since this was the case, had he really reached the 7-cloud realm? Indeed, as Master Zagru said, although the origin of nature had brought him great benefits, it seemed to have deceived some things. 4 auspicious clouds. Did the 4 auspicious clouds really bring him 4 types of abilities? No, it couldn't be that simple. Thinking until here, Chiyu nodded and said, "Master, thank you. Although I haven't figured out what the problem is, I think as long as I continue to cultivate, I should be able to figure out the relationship between them. It's not a short time. Let's go out. There are some things that I have to let everyone know." Zagru nodded and patted Chiyu's shoulder, saying, "I'm not going. I have taught you what I should. It has been a long time since I left the temple. It's time for me to go back." Chiyu's face changed. "Master, are you leaving?" Zagru nodded and said, "Yes, it's time for me to go back. Chiyu, you can't rely on me for everything. You are the real king of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Moreover, I am no longer of any help to the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. After all, the secular world is not suitable for a monk like me. If you need me in the future, You can come to St. Buddha Temple to find me." Chi was silent for a while. He didn't say anything more, stood up, and walked out of the room. Chapter 2:10. At this time, all the Zodiac Guardian warriors had gathered in the hall of the Villa of Dragonfield Courtyard, except for Ming Ming. Ryue was anxiously waiting in the middle of the hall. When she heard Vol and the others say that Chi Yu's expression was not right, her heart was filled with uneasiness. Ever since she became Chi Yu's woman, this man had become the most important person in her heart. Moreover, Vol and the other speculation was somewhat credible. Based on Chi Yu's character, perhaps only Ming Ming and Wen Ting could have such great feelings for him. The sound of the door opening made Ryue nervous. The Zodiac Guardian warriors present were not weak. Naturally, they could feel that Chi Yu had walked out of Master Zagru's room. They immediately stopped talking and looked at the stairs on the right. Chi Yu calmly walked down the stairs. Looking at her, Ryue's eyes couldn't help but move slightly. As Chi Yu's woman, she undoubtedly felt the change in Chi Yu's aura the most. Chi Yu's skin seemed to emit a layer of reddish-golden luster. Although he had returned to the villa, the reddish-golden wings on his back were retracted but not returned to his body. Even his hair was reddish-golden. His expression was calm and a little scary. In his eyes, Ryue could see deep exhaustion. Spreading the wings on his back, Chi Yu directly jumped down from the second floor. Master Zagru didn't follow him out. In the hall, Chi Yu just happened to be standing beside Ryue. Ryue's eyes revealed a questioning look. Although she finally saw the man that she had missed for months, she felt even more uneasy. Chi Yu stepped forward and naturally held Ryue's hand. Ryue was surprised. Chi Yu's hand was very cold, even a little like ice. Her expression couldn't help but change slightly. "Chi Yu, what's wrong?" Gently shaking his head, Chi Yu took a deep breath and slowly retracted the wings on his back into his body. The reddish-golden luster on his skin also gradually dissipated. Because of the reddish-golden wings on his back, the clothes on his back revealed two receivers. It looked a little strange. When Chi Yu's wings and the reddish-golden luster on his body completely disappeared, the expressions of everyone present couldn't help but change, because they saw Chi Yu's long white hair. Although Chi Yu's life had been saved, and his body's functions were gradually recovering under the effect of the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King's origin of nature. However, his originally pitch-black long hair had disappeared forever. His white hair made Chi Yu's aura seem a lot more bleak. This was not only caused by his weak body. In the 3 days that he had flown back, Chi Yu's heart had always been in an incomparably complicated mood. The so-called white hair overnight, because of the changes in his body and emotions, caused his hair to become like this. Everyone present could clearly feel that after losing the reddish-golden luster, Chi Yu was actually so weak. His face was almost gray, and there was no luster in his eyes. Coupled with the white hair, he, who was originally only 20 years old, now looked at least 30 years old. His skin was very dry, and his body was also very weak, as if he could collapse at any time. Ryue sucked in a breath of cold air. Holding Chi Yu's hand, she hurriedly transferred her pure thundercloud force into Chi Yu's body without reservation. However, as soon as her thundercloud force entered Chi Yu's body, it was blocked by Chi Yu's own energy. Chi Yu turned his head to look at her and gently shook his head. At this time, all the Zodiac Guardian warriors were looking at him. Even the somewhat eccentric Mo Dan and the last Zodiac Guardian warrior, Guan Jing, were looking at Chi Yu with a surprised expression. Mo Dan's body was still as magnificent as before, but his aura seemed to have become more domineering. On the other hand, Guan Jing looked a lot calmer. His own energy fluctuation was very different from his original rotten body. Obviously, he had obtained a lot of benefits from his cultivation. "Everyone wants to know why I became like this," Chi said lightly. Bull couldn't help but ask, "Boss Yu, what happened to you? Where's Sister Ming Ming?" Also, when Ting and Snow Girl disappeared, did they go to find you? Chi Yu looked at Vol and didn't directly answer his question. "It caused me to become like this. It's all because of my own stupidity. I made everyone worry. Ming Ming isn't my Kirin Pearl. She was seriously injured, and I'm afraid it will be difficult for her to recover in a short time. Snow Girl was too sad, so I let her sleep in my Kirin Pearl for a while. As for Wenting, at this point, Chi Yu's eyes revealed a trace of deep sorrow. The deathly stillness caused a layer of grayish-white luster to appear in his eyes. This was the aura of death that Vol had sensed earlier, and it was also an energy fluctuation that came from his heart. Although Chi Yu stopped Ryue's energy input, she still held Chi Yu's hand tightly. Chi Yu's pause in his words made her understand a lot. Yin Xiaoyi said involuntarily, "Boss, did Wenting?" Chi Yu took a deep breath and barely calmed his aura of death. "Yes, in order to save me, she died. At the same time, this time in the West, I also implicated many people, including many masters of the Dracula family, the vampire prince, my friend Klinsman, and Snow Girl's father, Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King." After listening to Chi Yu's words, all the Zodiac Guardian warriors quieted down. Mo Dan, Guanjing, and Hummer, who did not know him very well, did not feel much. However, people like Ryue, Vol, and those who were very close to Chi Yu clearly understood how big a blow the death of these people was to Chi Yu. Ryue finally could not help but speak. She had always been strong, but at this time, her voice was a little trembling. "Chi Yu, what happened? Wenting, how could what happened to you?" Chi Yu's gray eyes trembled for a moment. "Because I was too stupid. Xinyan was right. I am a fool, the most stupid fool in the world. It's all because of me, that I implicated them, that they died because of me." Mo Dan looked at Chi Yu, frowned, and said, "Yao Chi, can't you speak clearly? Why are you hemming and hawing? Are you a man or not? If all men are like this when they encounter a blow, I would rather never marry." If it was any other time, Mo Dan's words would definitely be ridiculed by others, but now, no one was in the mood to ridicule her. Everyone felt as if there was a big stone pressing on their hearts, and they looked at Chi Yu, waiting for him to explain. Modi pulled Mo Dan and said softly, Dan, don't talk nonsense." Chi Yu looked at Mo Dan, but he did not get angry. "Yes, I can't even protect my own woman and let her die because of me. I'm really not a man. You're right, I don't want to talk about what happened in the West. Today, I gathered everyone here to tell you that in the near future, we will definitely face a strong enemy. It's an enemy that we can't predict, so all the Zodiac Guardian God warriors have to start a special training. My heart is in a mess now, and Ming Ming needs time to recover. I'll give everyone a week to adjust to everything. After that, there won't be time for everyone to do anything else. In other words, we need to break away from the real world and put all our spiritual energy into training." Mo Dan protested. "Are you kidding me? Why are you the one who suffered the shock, but you want us to be implicated? I don't agree. Although I promised my sister to accept the identity of the Zodiac Guardian God, it doesn't mean that I don't want to listen to you." Chi Yu looked at Mo Dan, nodded lightly, and said, "Fine, it's up to you. You don't need to participate. Who else? It's not too late to say it now. After a week, there won't be any chance to regret it. After the group training begins, no one can withdraw." Feeling Chi Yu's calmness and looking at his eyes that were full of death, Mo Dan, who was always fearless, felt a little afraid. She lowered her head, not daring to look at Chi Yu, but she did not take back her words. Vol said, "Boss, I support you." Su Dong said with a straight face, "Even someone as strong as Boss was injured. It shows how powerful our future enemies are. I also support this group training. Sweat more in normal times, and when we meet real enemies, we'll bleed less." The other Zodiac Guardian God warriors nodded. Only the horse warrior Mao, Jie, and the pig warrior Guanjing protected their silence. Chi Yu's gaze fell on the two, and Mao, Jie said, "Of course it's a good thing to train together. I'm very willing to participate. But I'm Xiao Lu's manager, and she still has a lot of things for me to deal with. I'm afraid I can't spare that much time. When will you organize the training?" Chi Yu said, "At least until the end of this year. We are going to a special place to train, and we can't come back in the middle of it." Mount Jie frowned and said, "That's a little difficult. Although Xiao Lu hasn't performed recently, she has already started preparing for her next album. It will be released next year, and she is still in the process of looking for inspiration." Chi Yu thought for a moment and said, "The place where we train is probably the best place to find inspiration. You can bring her along." Changjia hesitated and said, "I'm afraid that won't work. Xiao Lu is preparing to go to the subtropics, and she needs to find inspiration in a very natural environment. Maybe you don't know, but many of her singles are produced by herself. In the music industry, Xiao Lu can be said to be a once-in-a-century genius." Chi Yu said, "If that's the case, I'm almost sure that she will be very willing to go to that place. I will find someone to protect her. How about that?" Seeing that Changjia was still a little hesitant, he continued, "How about this? We go there first, and if she doesn't like half of it, I can send you all back. But I have to make one thing clear. As long as the training starts, I will not allow anyone to quit, and you can't quit either." Changjia looked at Chi Yu's head full of white hair, and for some reason, his heart trembled. He nodded and said, "Okay, since you said so, I have no reason to refuse you." There was a faint cold light in his eyes, and Chi Yu's gaze fell on Guanjing. "What about you? Why are you not willing to go?" Guanjing looked at Chi Yu, and she twirled her fingers and said, "I don't really care, but you know why I joined you, and it depends on how much you're willing to pay. If you can satisfy me, I can consider it." He didn't care about the other people's contemptuous eyes and looked at Chi Yu's provocative eyes. Chi Yu nodded and said, "Okay, I promise you. If you're willing to go, I will give you 200 yen Huang coins as salary every day. How about that?" Guanjing's eyes lit up. 200 yen Huang coins? If that's the case, you can get 6,000 a month. It seems that I can consider it. Chi Yu faintly said, 300 yen Huang coins. If you are not willing, then forget it. Guanjing almost reflexively said, "Deal." Chi Yu said, "In that case, everyone can go deal with their own things." Mo Dan was the first to turn around and leave, followed by an excited Guanjing, who also went back to her room, as if planning how to spend her 300 yen Huang daily salary in the future. The rest of the Zodiac warriors didn't have any intention of leaving. Except for Changjia, they had known Chi Yu for a long time, especially Su Dong, Vol, and the others, who had been with Chi Yu since he became Kirin. Out of concern for a friend, they all wanted to know what happened to Chi Yu to make him become like this. Chi Yu's eyes revealed a faint light. "Everyone, you can leave now. I'm sorry, I really don't want to say it now, but I can guarantee that you will find out sooner or later." Ryu nodded to everyone and said, "Let him have some peace." Su Dong walked to Chi Yu's side and patted his shoulder. "No matter what, we will always be by your side to support you. Although Mo Dan's temper is a little strange, it's not difficult to persuade her. I know you're doing this for everyone's sake." Chi Yu nodded and said, "Then I'll leave it to you. Master will leave here tomorrow. You can go and say goodbye to him. I may not appear in the next few days. I need to help Ming Ming and the others heal, so I won't be seeing Master off." Vol's expression suddenly changed, and he didn't say anything. He just chased after the direction Mo Dan left. Everyone knew that Mo Dan had that kind of feelings for him, but his heart was with Modi. At this time, he chased after the direction Mo Dan left without looking back. Needless to say, everyone knew what he was going to do. In order to let Mo Dan participate in Chi Yu's group training, he was actually willing to sacrifice his own body to a certain extent. Such brotherly love and everyone's concerned gazes all warmed Chi Yu's cold heart a lot. Feeling Wen Ting's energy aura in his body, he took a deep breath and turned to Rua, who was beside him, and said, "I want to go out for a walk. Will you accompany me?" Ryua said gently, "No matter where you go, I will always be by your side." Chi Yu tightly held Ryua's slender jade hand, as if he was afraid that he would suddenly lose her. His eyes revealed a touch of gentleness, and he said, "Then let's go." Under the gazes of the Zodiac Guardian warriors, Chi Yu and Ryua left the villa. Chi Yu didn't drive. He sat in the front passenger seat, while Ryua drove her Lamborghini sports car out of Dragonfield Courtyard. Sitting in the front passenger seat, Chi Ho closed his eyes, his left hand tightly holding Ryua's left hand. Except for the moment when he got in the car, his hand had always maintained this posture, as if he was afraid that Ryua would also leave him. Only by holding that wet jade hand, Chi Yu's heart felt a little better, and the pain caused by Wen-Ting's death also eased a little. "Where are we going?" Riyue looked at Chi-Yu with a distressed expression. Chi-Yu's hair was a little messy, and he looked as if he was seriously ill. His pale white hair looked so shocking, and he was only 20 years old. Riyue held back her tears. She knew that Chi-Yu needed her care and comfort now. She was very clear that his feelings for Wen-Ting were no less than hers, and Wen-Ting's death was a huge blow to him. Moreover, Snowgirl's father and Klinsman had also lost their lives because of him. Although Chi-Yu didn't tell her the process, Riyue could completely imagine the soul-stirring experience. "Let's go to Tianxiang Mountain," Chi-Yu said quietly. His voice was a little weak. He felt that his heart was very tired, and his spirit was also extremely tired. He didn't even want to absorb the energy in the air to restore his body's functions. Riyue gently nodded. Her right hand was still held by Chi-Yu, and she used her left hand to control the steering wheel. They followed the airport highway into the ring road and headed in the direction of Tianxiang Mountain. Along the way, Chi-Yu didn't say a word. He calmly leaned against the seat. His breathing was also very weak, as if he was asleep or unconscious. The energy in his body was also very weak. From Ryue's point of view, he seemed to have lost control of the energy. This was a feeling that she had never felt before. By the time the car reached Tianxiang Mountain, the sky had already darkened. By the time Chi-Yu returned to the Longyu courtyard, it was already afternoon. The Longyu courtyard and Tianxiang Mountain were in two different directions. They were in the east and west of the capital. Riyue didn't want to drive too fast and affect Chi-Yu, so it took about an hour to reach the foot of the mountain. After parking the car, Riyue wanted to get out to open the door for Chi-Yu. However, Chi-Yu held her hand tightly, as if their hands were glued together. It seemed that he didn't want to let go, like a child relying on his mother. Riyue only struggled a little, then stopped. She sat in the driver's seat, tilted her head, and quietly looked at Chi-Yu. She didn't want to disturb him, so she just quietly waited. When the sun gradually fell from the west and the sky became darker, Chi-Yu reluctantly opened his eyes. "Do you have smoke?" Riyue nodded, took out a pack of cigarettes from the storage box, took one out, and lit it for Chi-Yu. He took a deep breath and exhaled the smoke. Looking at the blurred smoke in front of him, Chi-Yu's eyes became a little confused. In that confusion, there was a deep pain. "Riyue, don't ever leave me, okay?" His voice carried a bit of a sob. Riyue held Chi-Ho's left hand with her other hand and said, "Fool, stop talking nonsense. How can I leave you?" Chi-Yu turned his head and looked at her deeply. "Today is the last night I will allow myself to be weak. From tomorrow onwards, I will become a different person. From now on, I will never allow myself to be weak because of anything. I will always maintain a rational state. I will never let the people I love and my friends come to any harm." Riyue looked at Chi-Yu's red eyes, slowly pulled him to her side, and let his head rest on her shoulder. "Say it. Maybe you will feel better if you say it. No matter what happens to you, I won't blame you." Leaning on Ryue's shoulder, Chi-Yu smelled the faint fragrance on her body. It was as if he had found a driftwood in the raging sea. He snuggled up to her tightly. "Riyue, do you know? When Wen-Ting merged her body with mine, I suddenly felt that I had let you all down. I had let each and every one of you down. I was the biggest bastard in the world." Tears flowed uncontrollably. Chi-Yu's whole body trembled slightly. Riyue listened to him quietly. Their fingers were intertwined like a pair of lovers who had just fallen in love. They snuggled up to each other in the car, feeling each other's heartbeat. "Back then, I had Ming Ming. I really liked her. Before I became Kirin, I never thought that I, Chi-Yu, would have such a beautiful girlfriend. At that time, the satisfaction in my heart could not be described with words. However, later on, I met you in Wen-Ting. Your beauty moved my heart. Although I still loved Ming Ming, I couldn't help but fall in love with you. At that time, I never thought that doing so would be unfair to you. Later on, after you found out about this, you still didn't blame me. Instead, you continued to love me silently, which made me feel even more satisfied. Although I also felt a sense of crisis, I also felt a trace of dissatisfaction in your hearts. However, at that time, I always comforted myself with Master Zeru's words that Kirin needed 4 women to be enough. It was only when Ting died for me that I understood. Although I really regret it, I can no longer give up on any of you. Because of your relationship, I became more and more confident in myself. I even foolishly thought that I could get any woman. The hooligan aura that I had cultivated since I was young made my immunity to beautiful women extremely poor. It was also because of this that I suffered this blow, a blow that I will never be able to make up for. At this point, Chi-Yu was sobbing uncontrollably. His body trembled as he subconsciously revealed a trace of evil aura. He snuggled up to Ryue. He realized that the women around him were more important than his own life. Ryue sighed softly and said, "Actually, when you and Ming Ming were together, I didn't have that kind of feeling for you. However, as things developed, I realized that it's hard to control one's inner feelings. After we had that relationship, I even thought of quitting, but I really couldn't do it. Chi-Yu, don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault alone. If you're wrong, all of us are at fault. Moreover, didn't everything go well in the end? Whether it was Ming Ming or Wen Ting, they didn't have the thought of monopolizing you. Even though we all regretted not being able to monopolize you, we chose to accept it. Because in our hearts, we truly love you, and it is precisely because of this that we understand how painful it is to leave you. So, why would we force the other two?" Chi took a deep breath and suddenly let go of Ryue's hand. He said, "Let's go to the top of the mountain." He wiped the tears on his face. Ryue didn't notice that Chi-Yu's tears had a faint red color. After getting out of the car, the two of them didn't use their abilities. They held hands and slowly walked up the mountain. You should have guessed it already. After walking for half an hour to the mountainside, Chi-Yu suddenly stopped. Ryue gently nodded and said, "It has something to do with Athena, right?" Chi-Yu suddenly turned around and fiercely pulled Ryue into his arms. He hugged her tightly, so that his body was completely attached to Ryue's. He didn't speak for a long time. Ryue gently stroked Chi-Yu's back. "Tell me, what happened to you?" Chi-Yu nodded. Thundercloud force flowed within his body, carrying him and Ryue's body. In just a moment, under the support of the thundercloud force, they had already arrived at the top of Tianxiang Mountain. At this time, Tianxiang Mountain was very quiet. There was not a single person. Today's sky was very dark. There was no moon. The entire mountain was pitch black. Only the distant lights of the capital could be seen. Chi-Yu hugged Ryue and sat down on a big rock. He let her sit on his lap, his hands wrapped around her slender waist. His right hand intertwined with Ryue's left hand. He used his body to almost wrap Ryue up. That day, we took the plane that Yama sent and arrived at Athena. After that, everything began according to heaven's arrangement. Chi began to quietly narrate, telling every detail in detail. This included his inner thoughts about Yama. He told Ryue without reservation. Listening to him, Ryue quietly leaned on Chi-Yu's shoulder, although her mood was fluctuating with Chi-Yu's story. However, she realized that ever since she had established her relationship with Chi-Yu, there had never been a day where she was as peaceful and happy as today. Every cell in Chi-Yu's body was full of attachment to her. It was not a physical attachment, but completely from the heart. This feeling of being cared for made Ryue feel that no matter how much she had to pay for Chi-Yu, it was worth it. It was also at this time that she fully realized that Chi-Yu's love for her was such a small advantage. Dead when Ting is dead. The Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King is also dead. In order to save my life, they sacrificed their precious lives. I still clearly remember that when Ting completely fused with my body, she still did not blame me at all. She even used her last breath to comfort my heart. What have I done for her? Nothing. In the end, she still could not escape the fate of the giant beast relic. This is all my fault, all my fault. If I had not been attracted to Yamu, if I had been more careful, none of this would have happened. Even if I could not defeat those strong people, I could at least run away. It was because I trusted Yamu too much that so many people died because of me. Ria, my heart really hurts. It hurts so much that I can't breathe. Finally finished speaking. The light in Chi-Yu's eyes completely disappeared. His grayish-white eyes looked at Yamu. In the darkness, his tears of blood had already wet Ryue's white clothes, But at this time, neither of them felt it. Chiyu. Ryue had just said 2 words when she was interrupted by Chiyu. Holding her tightly, Chiyu murmured, "Don't say anything, okay? Don't comfort me, don't blame me. I just want to hold you like this now. I've already lost Wenting. I can't lose you and Ming Ming too. In the past, I was always impulsive. Even after returning from the ancient giant bee stage with the Xianyuan sword, I thought that there were no opponents in this world. The fault I owe is not only on Yamu, but also on myself. From the moment the sun rises tomorrow, I will become rational. From now on, no matter what the situation is, I must calculate everything clearly. From tomorrow onwards, I will never be separated from you again. I will use the rest of my life to protect you forever." Ryue felt her shoulder wet. It was Chiyu's tears. Since he began to talk about his experience in the West, his tears had not stopped flowing. They were tears of regret, tears of sorrow for the deaths of Wenting, Klinsman, and Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King. He was right. At this time, he was completely showing his weak side. Only in this way could he completely express the depression in his heart. Chiyu's body was very cold. Ryue carefully released her body heat to warm his body. A faint light was emitted. Just as Chiyu said, she let him hug her body and snuggle with her. Chapter 211. Chiyu's eyes were still open. He held Ryue in his arms. His heart was very, very calm, and he maintained a motionless posture. For the entire night, he quietly looked ahead, feeling the warmth from Ryue's body. In Chiyu's arms, Ryue also did not sleep for the entire night. At the same time, she did not say a word. The pain in her heart was no less than Chiyu's. At this moment, Chiyu was like a little boy who had suffered a huge blow. His body and mind were greatly injured. Although he was holding her, Ryue clearly understood that he was at his weakest, and her warmth was the best medicine to make up for the pain in his heart. When the sun rose from the far east, it brought a new day of light and vitality to the land of Yanhuang. The feeling of the rising sun gradually raised the temperature of the air. With Ryue's strength, it would not be a problem for her to maintain the same position for an entire night. However, she was very nervous. She did not sleep for the entire night. She was constantly worried about the man who was holding her, and she was constantly feeling the aura from Chiyu's body. She was afraid that something would happen to him. Her heart was very heavy. Although Chiyu did not cry out, the clothes on her shoulders were wet throughout the night. The silent tears did not stop flowing. "Chiyu, the sun has risen. We should go back. Didn't you say that before? Last night was your last moment of weakness. I believe that you will definitely become stronger. What others give us, we will repay it 1,000 times over," Ryue said softly. She was really worried about Chiyu's state. Hearing Ryue's words, Chiyu said a little blankly, "The sun has risen? But why is it still so dark?" Ryue's heart tightened. An extremely bad premonition filled her heart. She could no longer bear it. She pulled Chiyu's hand and struggled to stand up in his arms. When she saw her clothes under the sunlight, she couldn't help but let out a scream. "Ah, Chiyu." Tears gushed out uncontrollably. Ryue hugged Chiyu tightly in her soft embrace. That was because she saw that half of her white dress had turned red, starting from her shoulders. Although the red wasn't very deep, she knew what it was based on the moist feeling. Not only had Chiho shed silent tears for an entire night, but he had also shed blood. It was obvious how much pain he was suffering in his heart. Chiyu was held in Ryue's arms in a daze. He muttered to himself, "What's wrong with me? Why is it so dark? I can't see anything. Am I blind? Chiyu, don't scare me." Ryue desperately injected her thundercloud force into Chiyu's body, trying to help him adjust the aura in his body. However, the energy she injected was rejected by Chiyu again. "No, Ryue, I can't take your energy. Don't lose to me. Do you want me to feel the pain that Wenting gave me when she fused with her body again?" Chiyu hugged Ryue. "It's really dawn. I can feel the temperature of the sun." Ryue sobbed and hugged Chiyu. "Why did it become like this? Chiyu, didn't you say you would protect me? Nothing can happen to you. If worst comes to worst, we won't be the Zodiac guardian god anymore. We can take Ming Ming and Snow Girl and find a beautiful place to live in seclusion. Although I don't have Ting, I can still be Snow Girl's mother. Chi-Yu, don't scare me. I can't lose you. Could it be that you want me to experience the pain you experienced when you lost Ting? Chi-Yu's emotions gradually calmed down. He gently stroked Ryue's long hair and shook his head. Silly girl, why would I? How could I bear to let you suffer that kind of pain? I said yesterday that from today onwards, I will become a new Chi-Yu. Can't you see? Maybe this is God's punishment for me. Ryue, do you know? This makes me feel much better. A person has to pay the price for doing something wrong. No, I don't want you to pay the price. I'd rather you transfer all the pain you've suffered to me. Ryue threw herself into Chi-Yu's arms and sobbed painfully. This was the first time a smile had appeared on Chi-Yu's face since Ting's death. It was a very faint smile, and the rays of the morning sun shone on his face, giving it a golden outline. Chi-Yu's eyes had already turned light red. Only his pupils were gray. He couldn't see. He really couldn't see. However, his heart was truly freed from sorrow as the sun gradually rose. A loud and clear roar rang out from Chi-Yu's mouth. His clear and impassioned voice brought everyone's mood out of the abyss. First, a pair of black, untamed beasts broke free from his back and spread out to the sides. Every single piece of black armor gave off a faint glow under the sunlight. Then, another pair of wings appeared behind the black wings. Those were pure gold wings. When the wings were completely spread out, they slowly closed in front of Chi-Yu, completely wrapping up Ryue's delicate body. I'm not an angel. However, from today onwards, I will use my wings to protect you, my love. I will also protect my friends. Ryue, don't be sad for me. The current Chi-Yu is the real Kirin. At least, the sorrow in my heart has disappeared. Let's start our lives anew. I've lost everything. I will work hard to bring us back to me. The people who hurt us, I will make them pay. I have lost my sight, but I still have the heart's eye. I can also see everything outside. Although his eyes had lost their luster, his heart was now alive again. Although he had lost his sight on the surface, the source of nature could make plants become his eyes. Green negative energy revolved around Chi-Yu's body. Then blue water and red fire. The two completely opposite energies actually became harmonious at this moment. They revolved around Chi-Yu together with the wind. Just like the moon, it soothed the wound in his heart. The purple lightning was like a small spirit snake, fluctuating in an orderly manner. At this moment, the purple lightning was Chi-Yu's heart was completely immersed in his love for Ryue. The Kirin pearl lost its luster and shone again. Under the light of the sun, after a night of release, the pain had already left. He had lost his sight, but in exchange for a new life. Chi-Yu's heart was completely awakened. Just as he had said, the current him had truly grown up. His black hair had turned white, and his black eyes had turned light red. Although this boy had sacrificed a lot to grow up, from now on, his heart had already undergone a huge change. Feeling the tenderness of the wings, Ryue's heart felt a little more comfortable. However, she still felt very painful. Her tears almost dyed her clothes red. How much pain was that? Now, she would rather die for Chi-Yu than for Ting. Slowly raising his head, Chi took a deep breath. Once again, he let out a long roar. All the plants in Tianxiang Mountain moved along with his roar. The aura of the source of nature. It allowed him to see everything around him with his heart. At this moment, the plants had already become his eyes. With a slight smile, Chi-Yu's light red eyes revealed a trace of light red. The silver eyes of the Kirin tattoo on his chest had also unknowingly turned light red. He lowered his head and kissed Ryue's delicate face. Then, he used his own face to gently caress it. What a comfortable feeling. Ryue, we should go back. A new day has arrived. Kirin should also pull himself together. Ryue struggled out of Chi-Yu's embrace and took off her red dress in front of him. Her eyes flickered. I will keep it forever. I will also remember last night. Promise me, my love, never let that scene happen again. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will really lose me. Because your pain is also my pain. I can't bear such pain again. Looking at the woman in front of him attentively, Chi-Yu slowly and firmly nodded. I promise. With a trace of a faint light in his eyes, Ryue's proud, naked body once again merged into his embrace. Her smooth skin rubbed against Chi-Yu's body. At this moment, both of them had no desire for sex, only a deep affection for each other. When Chi-Yu and Ryue returned to the Dragonfield courtyard, it was already early in the morning. Chi-Yu had returned to his room and hadn't come out yet. Meanwhile, Ryue had asked Zhou to fill the entire villa with all kinds of plants. After gathering all the Zodiac Guardian warriors, Ryue calmly told everyone everything that had happened to Chi-Yu in the West. It was Chi-Yu who had asked her to do this. Since everything had been figured out, there was no need to hide it. After all, everyone had the right to know everything. Silence. After Ryue finished her story, the entire hall was silent for a full 5 minutes. Su Dong let out a long sigh. I'm afraid that nothing is more painful than being betrayed by someone you love deeply. Chi-Yu has endured so much and experienced so much. It's no wonder that he suffered such a huge blow. Ryue, what should we do to make him feel better? Ryue lowered her head and quietly said, Don't you blame him? For the sake of a woman, he let himself become like this. Don't you blame him? Guanping also let out a sigh and shook his head with a bitter smile. What's there to blame? It's very difficult to use common sense to think about things like feelings. What's more, Chi-Yu has already endured so much pain. I believe that this experience will make him more mature than he was before. I believe that our King of the Zodiac will definitely walk out of his pain. What we need to do is not to blame him, but to find a way to walk out of his pain faster and better. Yin Xiaoyi scolded angrily. Yamu, that be asterisk TCH. Damn it, she actually cheated boss's feelings like this. If there's a chance, I'll definitely rape her. Isn't she a virgin? I'll make it so that she can't be a god anymore. Let's see how she'll continue to be so horny. Hu Guang let out a cold snort. Greece and the Vatican, they really don't care about us Asians. Second brother, looks like it's time for our Sacred Flame sect to take action. We must let them know that us Asians are not so easily bullied. This time, Ian actually accepted the title of second brother. He said in a low voice, What are you going to do? Those elders in the Vatican will not agree with our impulsive decision. Hu Guang's eyes revealed a hint of disdain. Those old fellows, other than holding us back, what else can they do? Blame them for going to hell. How could they possibly object to my decision? Let's not go overboard. Contact the foreign mercenaries. I haven't seen fireworks in a long time. I think Greece and London's St. Paul's Cathedral would be a good place to set off fireworks. Modi walked to Ryue's side. She could see that Ryue did not look too good today. She was abnormally pale. She held onto Ryue's hand and said in a low voice, How is he? You guys didn't come back last night. Everyone is very worried. I've already talked to Whitey. She will participate in our collective training. Ryue shook her head gently and said, At least on the surface, he looks much better than yesterday. But it's easier said than done to walk out of such pain. Maybe deep down, everyone has some opinions about Chi-Yu and thinks that he is not calm enough. He became like this because of a woman. But this time, he did pay a huge price. Do you know? Last night, his tears dyed my dress red. Now he is blind. What? Almost everyone exclaimed. Even Mo Dan, who was standing in the corner, couldn't help but be shocked. She looked at Ryue with a strange look in her eyes. Ryue sighed and said, I hope that everyone will not mention this in the future. Even if it's for my sake, I don't want Chi-Yu to suffer anymore. Yes, we Zodiac Guardian warriors are equal. No one can order others to do anything. But Chi-Yu's experience this time has also given us a wake-up call. In this world, there's still many existences that can threaten us. For the future of the Zodiac Guardian warriors, this collective training is very important. Even I don't know if Chi-Yu's mental state is stable now. I hope that everyone can be more tolerant of him, okay? Everyone nodded. Even Mo Dan didn't say anything against it. Ryue raised her head and looked at the end of the stairs. She sighed in her heart. Chi-Yu, I hope you can recover soon. After returning to his room, Chi-Yu's heart was in pain. It was so quiet that even he felt it was a little unbelievable. The suffocating pain in his heart had quietly disappeared. What was left was only a soothing feeling. His face looked a little cold, and his eyes had lost their luster. However, his thundercloud force had changed at the moment of enlightenment in the morning. At that moment, when Ting's energy had been completely absorbed by his body, the thundercloud force in his body was also recovering quickly. It absorbed 4 different energy molecules in the air to replenish itself. At that moment in the morning, Chiyu suddenly realized that Master Zagru was right. As a Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds, thundercloud force was his foundation. It was unrealistic to expect to rely on the Xianyuan sword before he fully grasped the elk skill. After all, although the Xianyuan sword was powerful, it consumed a lot of energy. Only the elk skill was his main strength. Kirin Pearl lit up under the effect of the thundercloud force. 3 figures appeared in front of Chiyu at the same time. Snow Girl had already woken up in Kirin Pearl. Chiyu's pain had been transmitted to every corner of Kirin Pearl through his breath. Looking at Chiyu's gloomy eyes, Snow Girl didn't say anything. She just quietly walked to Chiyu and went into his arms. "Dad, I know. You're not dead. You'll always be my dad. Shwa, or we'll be strong." After saying that, Snow Girl kissed Chiyu's face. She didn't stay for another second and walked out of his room. After Snow Girl left, Ming Ming and Christy looked at Chiyu quietly. They had also woken up. After several days of recuperation in Kirin Pearl, their injuries had recovered a little. Christy said, "There's no need to apologize. It has already happened. Chiyu, I just hope that you can stand by my side when I go to avenge my brother. Just like when Ting, my brother, didn't die. Now, we siblings have completely merged. Su Qing is no longer Su Qing. There's only Christy, the new leader of the Dracula family." Chiyu nodded to Christy. "Thank you, Christy. Just like Klinsman, although I'm not as old as you from now on, I will replace him and fulfill the responsibility of an elder brother. I will protect you at all costs. This is my promise." Christy revealed a faint smile. Although she looked a little embarrassed and the wounds on her body were clotted with golden blood, her breath was very calm. Just like Chiyu, she had also grown up and matured after this incident. Just like she said, Su Qing, who was under Klinsman's protection, had died. The new leader of the Dracula family, Christy, had been reborn. Ming Ming looked deeply at Chiyu. She didn't say anything, but her gentle eyes had said a lot. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, a faint thundercloud force circulated around her body. Her voice echoed in Chiyu's heart. "If it were me that day, I would have done the same. If it were you, you would have done the same. Sister, when Ting isn't dead, she will stand in front of you again sooner or later, right?" Chiyu sat cross-legged, forming a triangle with Christy and Ming Ming. His eyes flickered slightly as the 4 types of cloud energy in his body began to circulate under the effect of his gradually recovering mental strength. Following Sheng Lin's most fundamental cultivation method, he began to absorb the energy molecules in the air. The energy from his origin of nature formed a light green barrier in the room, enveloping the 3 of them. Not only did it heal the injuries suffered when his bodily functions were exhausted, it also assisted Christy and Ming Ming in their self-healing. The biggest characteristic of the source of nature energy was that it was neutral and peaceful. Back then, it was also because of this that he was used by Yamu. Therefore, whether it was Ming Ming's energy or Christy's powerful dark energy, they didn't reject the aura of the source of nature at all. In the pale green light barrier, the 3 of them emitted different lights at the same time. When Snow Girl came to the villa's hall, Ryue had already told everyone everything. Seeing Snow Girl coming down, Ryue hurriedly greeted her, a trace of concern in her beautiful eyes. Snow Girl gently shook her head and said, "I'm fine." Ryue said, "Although when Ting is gone, I will treat you like her in the future. Are you willing to recognize me as your mother?" Snow Girl said, "Everything is over. Don't worry, Dad will be fine. I can feel that he has thought it through. Mom, we can't put all the burden on Dad. I want to do everything I can to help Dad. If possible, from now on, completely hand over the Kirin group to me." Guan Ping said, "Snow Girl is right. We can't put all the burden on Chiyu. We are all Zodiac Guardian warriors. We should share some of the burden with him. And the best way is to make yourself stronger. Only when we, the guardians of the East, are strong enough will we not be bullied by outsiders. Ryue's sad eyes gradually brightened. Tyrannosaurus Rex's aura gradually recovered. Looking at the Zodiac guardian warriors around her, she said in a deep voice, "Su Dong, immediately contact the four families. The Easter Guardians are one. It's time for them to contribute some strength. Although our strength is gradually increasing, there are only 13 of us after all. Our strength is limited in the end. We can't be like Yamu and get the support of the whole country. We can only rely on ourselves. Within 3 days, the four families will each pick 30 youths with the most potential. Send them to the Dragon Field courtyard. It's time for us to grow stronger." Su Dong said with some worry. "I'm afraid this will be a bit difficult. The four families have always cherished those with potential. I'm afraid they won't agree." Ryue coldly snorted and said, "They won't agree? No, you're wrong. They have no reason to disagree. You can tell them that those who are sent here will be taught by us. Moreover, they will belong to the four families. Their increase in strength will cause the overall strength of the four families to soar. Why would they disagree? We don't want to completely turn these people into our people. We just want to help the four families increase their overall strength. The responsibility of protecting the Easter Guardian Warriors is not just the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. The four families have existed for so many years. They also have this responsibility, don't you think so?" After hearing Ryue's explanation, Su Dong's expression gradually relaxed. After all, he was also from the four families. After thinking about it carefully, he understood that everything Ryue wanted to do was extremely beneficial to the four families. Ryue continued, "Of course, before these youths become truly strong, they must stay by our side. At the same time, before we allow them to return to their families, they must listen to our orders. This time period will be set at 3 years. Sacrificing 3 years in exchange for a group of powerful people is definitely a good thing for the four families. Of course, I can't guarantee that when the time comes, the number of people who will return to their families will still be 30. Su Dong muttered, "I can only do my best. I can't guarantee that the four great clans will definitely agree. However, there shouldn't be any problems with our Su clan. It's time to tell the clan my identity." Ryue nodded and said, "I believe in your ability. Go and inform them now." Su Dong nodded and turned back to his room to make a phone call. At this time, Ryue fully displayed the demeanor of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The domineering aura emitted from her body made all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors feel restricted by the pressure. "Hu Guang, Ian, don't act rashly on your side. I basically know what Chi Yu is going to do next. Quietly transport the weapons I asked you to prepare last time. It's time for them to come in handy. It's not our chance for revenge yet. Chi Yu has made an appointment with Athena's successor, Yamu, to settle this matter at Mount Everest next January. Before that, we don't do anything to the West. Only when the time is completely ripe will we start our real action." Hu Guang thought for a moment and said, "Well, we'll listen to you. Second brother, we'll go arrange it now." Ryue turned her eyes to the rest of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors and said indifferently, "After Chi Yu recovers, we'll start concentrating on training. At that time, the process of training will be very difficult. It's better for everyone to be prepared, if we can't bear it. As long as we start concentrating on training, I'm afraid that Chi Yu won't be as easy to talk to as he is now. Everyone should remember the battle between him and us clearly. Since we've decided to support him, we'll do our best. I hope everyone is prepared." Changjia said straightforwardly, "That's no problem. As long as we can increase our strength, we should pay a little more. After all, the more we pay, the more we get back." The others nodded one after another. Guanjing curled her lips and said, "As long as I get my salary, I don't care about anything else. As long as there's money, I'll do whatever you want me to do." He had been in the Dragon Field courtyard for a while, and his aptitude could be said to be the worst among the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. His body had been hollowed out in the special industry for the past few years. If it wasn't for Grandmaster Zagrue's finger strength, his body would be far inferior to an ordinary person. Therefore, deep in his heart, he was very grateful to Chi Yu. At least, Chi Yu gave him a chance to live a new life and get money. Why not? At the same time, he gradually liked this kind of life. Mo Dan glanced at Guanjing and said proudly, "Anyway, I won't lose to anyone. However, Vol, you promised me that as long as I'm willing to participate in this concentrating training, you must keep your word and let me be your girlfriend." Vol glanced at Mo Dan, then looked at Modi and said coldly, "Since I promised, I'll keep my word. However, the condition is that you don't cause trouble for boss." Among the crowd, the youngest was Mo Dan, followed by Vol. She didn't know why, but when Modi heard Vol's words, she suddenly had a very uncomfortable feeling in her heart. All this time, although Vol had never confessed to her, everyone could see Vol's affection for her. Modi had no doubt that if she was in the same situation as Chiyu, Vol would also do the same thing as Wenting. Although there was a huge gap between the two of them in terms of age and appearance, after living together for so many days, Vol's unwavering affection made her no longer treat him as her student. Although Modi couldn't accept this feeling in his heart. However, when Mo Dan just said that Vol had agreed to be her boyfriend, Modi suddenly had a special feeling in her heart. She didn't know why she suddenly felt very empty and uncomfortable, but Vol's appearance seemed to have changed a lot from before. She was very clear about how little Vol had taken advantage of her feelings. However, for Chiyu, for his brother, he was willing to give up his only pursuit and choose Mo Dan. At this moment, in Modi's eyes, Vol was no longer her obedient student, but a real responsible man. Chiyu's cultivation lasted for a full 5 days. When he walked out of the room, the whole villa of the Dragonfield courtyard was filled with a green atmosphere, and there were different plants in almost every corner. Under the effect of the energy of the source of nature, although he couldn't see, he could clearly sense every detail around him through these plants. Thundercloud force had recovered to the level of 6 cloud, and every type of thundercloud force had reached the peak of 6 cloud. His body's injuries had completely recovered, and the source of nature had stabilized. Although, compared to when he was at his peak, the natural energy was much less, at least it wouldn't affect his cultivation. After discussing with Master Zagru, Chiyu improved his cultivation method a lot. He no longer converted all the thundercloud force into Kirin's source of nature's energy and absorbed the energy aura through the source of nature to cultivate. Instead, just like when he first started cultivating, he would cultivate the 4 types of cloud power separately. The energy from the origin of nature would only be used to absorb the energy molecules, so that the 4 types of cloud power would become more condensed. During these 5 days of cultivation and recovery, Yang Kai had been cultivating for a long time. He finally found out why his strength didn't increase as much after reaching 7 cloud in the west as he had imagined. This was because, under the effect of the source of nature, he converted all the thundercloud force into source of nature's energy, so the 7 cloud state he reached was actually equivalent to the 7 cloud state Kirin had reached. Chapter 2:12. It was just a breakthrough in strength and not a complete breakthrough in the 4 types of thundercloud force. That was why the advantages of Ink Kirin weren't fully revealed. Besides, he also realized that his cultivation method was somewhat different from the cultivation method that Mo had taught him. His Kirin's origin energy was different from ordinary Kirin's. Ordinary Kirin only needed to improve his strength through a single type of thundercloud force. Upgrading a single type of thundercloud force was equivalent to upgrading Kirin's origin energy. However, it was different for Road. He could only become a true 7-cloud being after upgrading the 4 types of thundercloud force to the 7-cloud realm. Based on his deduction, his strength would be twice as strong as when he was in the 7-cloud realm. This discovery piqued Chi-Yu's interest in Kirin's ascending cloud technique. When he cultivated, he absorbed the origin energy of Kirin into his body. He split his attention to absorb wind, fire, water, and lightning energy molecules in the air to fill his body and cultivate the 4 types of thundercloud force at the same time. Although the progress wasn't fast, every bit of improvement made him feel real. As long as he upgraded the 4 types of thundercloud force to the 7-cloud realm in different environments, he would be able to return to the 7-cloud realm and become a true 7-cloud being. In 5 days, under the effects of the source of nature, Ming Ming and Christie's bodies had basically recovered. It was especially so for Christie. Her recovery speed was much faster than Chiyu had imagined. Her realm as a blood empress had made her far stronger than ordinary vampires. Even though she had lost a lot of blood that day, it didn't affect her too much. It was just that her energy was damaged too much. With revenge as the strongest pillar of support in her heart, Christie cultivated with all her might without any distractions. Not only did the 5 days heal her injuries, but she also recovered about 50% of her strength. After 5 days of meditation and cultivation, she had a deeper understanding of her strength as a blood empress. After 5 days of meditation and cultivation, with the help of the energy from the source of nature, she had a deeper understanding of her ability to become a blood empress. She also had a clearer understanding of the blood divine puppet. It wouldn't take long. She would be able to regain her full strength. Ming Ming's recovery speed was much slower than Christie's. Chiyu's blindness and Wen Ting's death had greatly affected her mood. Furthermore, she had used up too much energy in the form of the rainbow bird last time. The chicken Zodiac's source power had been greatly damaged. Although the injuries on the surface had healed, his thundercloud force had only recovered by about 10%. His body was still very weak, and he needed some time to recuperate before he could fully recover. During these 5 days, apart from cultivating and healing, Chiyu buried the sorrow in the deepest part of his heart. He had thought it through. What had already happened. Even if he was sad, what could he do? Klinsmann and the Emperor's heart, Snow Lotus King, couldn't die in vain. If he wanted to resurrect Wen Ting, in that case, he would first have to possess sufficient strength. At the very least, only when he had enough strength could he awaken Wen Ting's spirit. The nature source replaced Chiyu's vision. Although he couldn't see everything around him like real eyes, he could still feel the atmosphere around him. Standing in front of the window, Chiyu's light red eyes were wide open. If one didn't know better, no one would think that he was blind. Chiyu, I have to go. Christie's cold voice had a hint of softness. Do you hate me? Chiyu smiled bitterly. Christie said indifferently, so what if I hate him or not? My brother is already dead. I've said it before. From now on, I am the direct successor of the Dracula family. I am the new leader of the Dracula family. My brother's blood will not be shed in vain. The Dracula family needs me, so I have to leave now. Slowly turning around and facing Christie, Chiyu said, in the process of healing you, I have used my spiritual power to connect with yours. If you are in danger, as long as I am still in this world, I will immediately feel it. Klinsmann is dead, so from now on, I am your brother. Promise me, don't act rashly. When I come to the West again, we will definitely settle the debt. Christie nodded and said, okay, I will wait for you. The Dracula family can only temporarily disappear for a while. After all, the blow to the Dracula family this time was devastating. I'm afraid that before I return, even the family's ancient castle will be destroyed. The other vampire families will not let go of such a good opportunity. I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. She walked past Chiyu. Chiyu didn't notice that her purple gold eyes were filled with tears before she flew out of the window. Christie's departure made Chiyu feel that the responsibility on his shoulders had become heavier. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. His face had become as cold as the ice on Kunlun Mountain. He knew that for a long time to come, he would only have one goal, and that was to become stronger. He would walk down the path of the strong without end. Losing his sight was not only a bad thing, but it also made it easier for him to focus on everything. He focused on Karji's cultivation. At the same time, this trip to the West also made him understand that no matter how strong a person was, his strength was still limited. Therefore, it wasn't just him who had to become stronger, but also the Zodiac Guardian warriors as a whole. With a thought, Chi suddenly felt something. The wind thundercloud force made his body as light as a feather. After setting up an energy boundary around Ming Ming, he flew out of the window and arrived at the lawn outside the Dragonfield courtyard in a flash. Ryue was standing there when she felt Chi Yu's aura. She turned around and just happened to see Chi Yu's descending figure. Today, Chiyu wore a black long-sleeve shirt and black trousers. His pale white hair was scattered over his shoulders and was slightly messy. The visual impact of the white and black made her heart ache. Chiyu's eyes were still light red. Although his aura had regained its strength, he still lost his sight. Thinking back to the bloodstain on her white dress that day, Ryue resisted her tears. Chiyu landed lightly beside Ryue. He naturally held her hand, and their fingers intertwined. Ryue relaxed a little. Ku relaxed slightly and said softly, "Are you feeling better?" Chiyu nodded. He revealed a faint smile. "Don't worry, I'm fine now. Is everyone ready? I estimate that in 2 days at most, Ming's body will recover to about 70%. At that time, it will be time for us to set off." Ryue nodded and said, "Everyone is basically ready. I've already talked to Mo Dan very clearly. Chiyu, don't think too much. No matter what, everyone will definitely support you." Chiyu sighed and said, "I have an idea that I wanted to discuss with you." "Oh, speak," Ryue said. "Just like what you said, one person's strength is ultimately insignificant. Even our Zodiac Guardian God warriors only have a total of 13 people. When the East needs our protection, our vast and abundant motherland is not something that the 13 of us can completely take care of. And protecting the East is not only our responsibility. So, I thought a way to let the 4 big families also participate." Chiyu's aura changed slightly, because he suddenly thought of Shan Yun, who is now the Gemini constellation guardian Yun. "Then what do you want to do? Although the 4 big families can no longer go against us, but if we want them to help us sincerely, I'm afraid it won't be an easy task." Ryue's eyes revealed a cold glint. "Those old fellows are all selfish. It's impossible for them to help us for free, but as long as the benefits we offer are big enough, we don't have to be afraid that they won't agree. That's my plan." As he said that, Ryue whispered a few words into Chiyu's ears. Hearing Ryu's words, Chiyu lightly nodded his head and said, "This is a very good idea. However, I do not know how strong the Ford Ray clans are. Although I have a certain amount of confidence in increasing their strength, the extent to which they can increase their strength is greatly related to their own talent. Furthermore, you should understand my plan. Once they reach that place, they might meet with danger at any time. I can't guarantee that they will be able to return alive." Ryue smiled and said, "I have already explained it to the 4 big families very clearly. Although not everyone will be able to return alive, but as long as they are able to return alive, they will definitely play an important role in the development of the 4 big families in the future. In our circle, strength is the most important. As long as we use both kindness and authority, in the near future, the 4 big families that become stronger will be able to become our arms. This is for the long term." Chiyu's face revealed a look of gratification. "Ryue, you're smart. All right, then it's decided. When will the people from the 4 big families arrive?" Ryue said, "They have already arrived. I have arranged a place for them to stay temporarily. When we leave, we will bring them along." Chiyu nodded his head and said, "All right then. I will have to trouble you with this matter. I need to go out and do 2 things. You will temporarily stay in the courtyard and take care of Ming. Ming's internal injuries have already been treated by me. However, she had used up too much energy when she used her ability. Therefore, she still needs some time to recover her thundercloud force." Hearing that Chiyu wanted to leave, Ryue's expression immediately became nervous. "Chiyu, where are you going? How about I accompany you? Or, I can call Su Dong over and let him accompany you. This way, he can also take care of you." Chiyu released Ryue's hand and pulled her into his embrace. He kissed her lightly and said, "Silly girl, do you really think that I can't do anything after I become blind? Don't worry, nothing will happen to me. Don't forget that all the plants are my eyes. How about this? Call Big Brother Jida over and let him go with me." Half an hour later, Jida rushed to the Dragon Field courtyard. He already knew that Ming had returned. When he heard that his only sister was seriously injured, his heart was filled with anxiety. However, he also believed that Chiyu would definitely be able to treat his sister's injuries. As soon as he entered the villa, Jida saw Chi-Yu standing under the white dragon statue in the hall. Chi-Yu stood there with his back facing the door, and he was the only one in the hall. Chi-Yu, who was dressed in black, entered Jida's sight. He immediately felt a different feeling coming from his brother-in-law. It was a deathly still aura. Chi-Yu's energy was completely restrained. Although he looked like an ordinary person, Jida could clearly feel that the current Chi-Yu gave him more pressure than before. "Master, you're back. How is Ming Ming? Could it be her?" Seeing Chi-Yu's black clothes, Jida subconsciously became nervous. Chi-Yu shook his head and slowly turned around. With just one step, he was in front of Jida. He patted his shoulder twice and said, "Don't worry, Ming Ming is fine. It's all my fault. I didn't take good care of Ming Ming. Let's go. Bring me to the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters. I want to see the Plant Soul sister." As he spoke, he directly walked out of the villa. Jida hurriedly followed. "Master, your hair, and your eyes, what is going on?" Chi-Yu's footsteps paused for a moment, and he said, "Something happened in the west, but it's all over now. You can ask Ryue or someone else. I don't want to repeat myself. But before that, bring me to the Plant Soul. Back then, I promised her that I would help her regain her ability to speak. It's been delayed for so long. It's time to fulfill my promise." From the changes in Chi-Yu's body, Jida could already see many things. After all, he was an elite from the Yanwang Republic's special forces. Hearing this, he nodded and did not ask any more questions. He brought Chi-Yu into his precious car and headed towards the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters. Ryue was in her room, watching Chi-Yu and Jida leave through the window. The light in her eyes became even gentler, and there was a hint of sadness hidden in that gentle light. The Plant Soul just came back from a mission a few days ago. She's getting stronger and stronger. She's already become a first-class expert in our Yellow Flame Soul. "Master, when will you teach your disciple some martial arts? My position is getting lower and lower. You also know that I don't want to rely on the old man. Only my own strength truly belongs to me." This time, Chi-Yu seemed to have changed into a different person. Feeling the cold aura from his body, Jida felt that it was very unnatural. That was why he purposely said these words to test him. Chi-Yu thought about it and said, "All right, then you can apply for leave from the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters. We will probably leave here the day after tomorrow and go to a mysterious place for special training. All the Zodiac Guardian warriors will participate. However, there's one thing I have to make clear first. No matter who you are, no matter what your position in the country is, you must never tell anyone about this special training. Otherwise, you won't be the only one who will suffer. Do you understand?" Jida was stunned for a moment and said, "What can't the country know about it?" "Master, the country is very supportive of you, especially after you solved the matter with the vampires. Right now, your position in Yanhuang is definitely extraordinary." Chi-Yu shook his head and said, "If you can't guarantee it, then don't go. Moreover, I won't go easy on you just because you're Ming Ming's brother. I'll give you 2 days to think about it." Hearing Chi-Yu's words, Jida couldn't help but be a little angry. "Master, what are you saying? When have I ever been afraid of hardship in training? You have to know that I'm a training maniac with a famous virtue. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to directly enter the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters with just the virtue of my body." Chi-Yu's eyes were now completely dark. There were no plants in the car, so he could only rely on his other senses to feel everything around him. In a situation where he couldn't see, his spiritual power had become his main use of virtue. Not only did it mobilize the power of nature, but it also allowed him to sense the aura of everything around him. All right, in any case, think about it carefully. I'm just reminding you that the special virtue training this time is much more difficult than the training in Tackle-McCann. This is because some of the training is not aimed at human virtue at all. It's extremely dangerous. Hearing Chi-Yu's words, Jida couldn't help but shudder. However, he still gritted his teeth and said resolutely, "There's no need to think about it. Master, I'll go with you. No matter what, I'm your first disciple. This must be a very good opportunity. No matter how difficult it is, I'm willing to endure it." The cold lines on Chi-Yu's face softened a little. He nodded lightly and said, "If you can endure it, I think the #1 expert in the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters will definitely change. Jita's pursuit of strength was definitely not inferior to anyone else's. Hearing Chiyu say this, he was even more determined to participate in this special virtue training. His eyes shone with a fiery light. Master, then don't treat me like a person. Anything is fine. The headquarters of the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters was not a secret place like Chiyu had imagined. Instead, it was in the busiest part of the capital. When Jita drove the car to this place, through the surrounding trees, Chiyu felt that this seemed to be a huge office building. The office building was shaped like a rocket. It felt a little strange, but in such a bustling area, it was the most unique building. Jita parked the car and said, "Treasure pet, master, we're here." Chiyu got out of the car. With the help of his spiritual power, he walked to Jita's side. "Where is this? I feel that this should be near the East 3rd Ring Road. Is this the International Trade Center?" Jita smiled and said, "Yes, this is the International Trade Center. This is the Chinese server building opposite the International Trade Center. It's a very unique building here. Let's go, master, let's go in." As he spoke, he led Chiyu into the building. As soon as they entered the building, Chiyu felt at least a dozen people walking over. From their aura, they seemed to be ordinary people, but they were very tall, and most of them were women. Jita whispered into Chiyu's ear, "Master, wait a moment. I'll report to the higher-ups. Although there's no problem with your identity, the Yellow Flame Soul headquarters still has to." Chiyu nodded and said, "Go, I understand. I'll wait for you here." Jita agreed and hurried away. Chiyu's spiritual power followed him all the way to a freight elevator in the corner of the building's lobby before he retracted it. At this moment, Chiyu suddenly heard some faint voices. "Wow, this person is so cool. Look at his good figure. Although he's a little ordinary, I think he must be our company's new model. He's so handsome. Such a handsome guy. Don't you guys steal him from me. But why haven't I heard of him before? Look, isn't he about 1.95 meters tall? He's close to 2 meters. His shoulders are really wide, and he even dyed his hair white. He's so handsome with his outfit. It seems that a figure is more important than a face. Hey, look, his eyes are actually light red. Could it be a new type of contact lens? It's really special. I'm going to buy it." Listening to these voices, Chiyu was surprised to find that these people were actually talking about him. They even stopped moving forward. He strengthened his spiritual power to connect with the plants around him. Through the origin of nature, he could observe his surroundings more clearly in his mind. He found that most of these girls were under 20 years old, and they were at least 1.75 meters tall. Each of them had a slim figure, and there was a faint fragrance of cosmetics on their bodies. From the feeling he got from the plants, they should be beauties, and there were as many as 10 of them. This was indeed the central business district of the capital. There were so many beauties at once. It was a pity that Chiyu was most disconnected from beauties. He didn't want to provoke them. Using his spiritual power, he walked to the side and stood there. Those girls didn't seem to want to let him go. A bold girl took the initiative to walk towards Chiyu. Feeling the approaching atmosphere, Chiyu couldn't help but frown. "Hello, are you a new colleague of our company?" The girl's voice was very pleasant. It seemed that she was the one who was talking about him the most enthusiastically. Chiyu said coldly, "No." The young girl was stunned. Chiyu's icy, cold voice actually caused her body to tremble in this season that had just entered autumn. "Isn't that so? How could it be? I can tell you are a model at first glance, and the building is the headquarters of our new Silk Road model company. I didn't know that a big guy like you would be shy." The girl forced a smile and said to Chiyu. Chiyu thought, "These girls actually think of me as a model. What is this? How could the headquarters of Yin Huang Soul be located in such a place?" He didn't pay any more attention to the girl. He simply stood there and didn't say a word. The girl was rebuffed. Hearing the laughter of her sisters behind her, she couldn't help but feel indignant. "Why are you so arrogant? Even if you're a famous model, you don't have to be so arrogant. I don't care." With that, she turned around and walked toward Chong Bao and her friends. At this time, a man came out of the elevator and shouted, "I say, beauties, why are you still here? Hurry up and get in the car. Don't you know that we don't have much time to prepare for the performance?" The man looked to be in his 30s. He was about 1. 8 meters tall. If he stood among ordinary people, he wouldn't be short. But compared to the beauties around him, he was a little short. The girl who talked to Chiyu before said angrily, "Manager Lee, your new male model is really arrogant." I took the initiative to talk to him, but he ignored me. Manager Lee was stunned for a moment and said, "A new man? I haven't recruited anyone recently. Are you sure?" While saying that, he subconsciously followed the eyes of the beauties and looked in the direction of Chiyu. The moment his gaze landed on Chiyu's body trembled. His whole body suddenly shook. Oh my God, what a perfect figure. Chiyu was getting impatient as he listened to other people's judgments about him. However, he didn't bring his phone. It was not easy to find Jita, so he could only wait here. But the expression on his face had become even colder. "Hello, sir. Are you here to apply for a job in our new Silk Road model company?" Manager Lee ran in front of Chiyu and asked excitedly. In his excitement, he was even immune to the coldness exuding from Chiyu. Chiyu coldly replied, "I've already said it once before, no. Please don't disturb me. Thank you." Manager Lee rubbed his hands. He hadn't been so nervous for a long time. His intuition clearly told him that if the man in front of him was willing to come to New Silk Road, it would definitely be a great thing for the company. With such a figure and temperament, he would definitely be a supermodel in the world. "Sir, it's like this. New Silk Road is the largest model company in the country. With your figure and temperament, it would be a pity if you don't become a model. If you are willing, our company can provide you with the most favorable conditions. Based on your own qualifications, you can definitely participate in the international model competition. I wonder if you're interested?" The impatience in Chiyu's heart deepened as he listened to the first half of the sentence. However, when he heard the last part about being able to participate in the international model competition, his heart suddenly moved. His expression softened a little as he said, "Does that mean that your company will often go overseas? I don't know how often you go to Italy and Greece. I like those two countries very much." Manager Lee said proudly, "Of course, Italy's Milan is a famous fashion city. As a pioneer in the domestic modeling industry, we often go there. As for Greece, although we don't go there often, we still have a chance to go there once or twice a year. If you're willing to join our company, I can give you the opportunity to go to Greece and Italy." Chi thought for a while and said, "Okay, but I have to think about it. Can you give me your business card? If I think about it, I will call you." Manager Lee's face showed a trace of disappointment, but he didn't know why. Standing in front of this man, he didn't dare to continue. The excitement had passed, but the pressure from Chiyu's body had already made him feel a little uncomfortable. He subconsciously took out his business card from his pocket and handed it to Chiyu. He smiled and said, "Then it's a deal. I haven't asked for your name, sir." At this time, Chiyu just felt Jita's aura. He walked to the freight elevator and said, "Chiyu." Bosley watched as Chiyu walked together with Jita, who was even taller than him. He subconsciously frowned and said, "Chiyu, I've never heard of this name before. However, he and his friend both have such good figures. I really don't know what those fellows are doing looking for suitable models every day. Well, girls, we have to hurry. Haven't you seen a handsome guy? Look at you guys, your eyes are all green." Jita's hearing was also good. He looked at the beauties in the hall and said with a smile, "Master, this is the first time I found out that your charm is so strong. Why was that guy looking for you?" Chiyu said, "Isn't this the headquarters of your Yellow Flame Soul Group? Why is there a model company here?" Jita said, "Master, you misunderstood. This is our headquarters. But our headquarters is underground, and the ground is a standard office building. This new Silk Road model company is really famous. I think they must have taken a fancy to Master's figure. But Master, I've never seen you wear black before. To be honest, you look really cool in this. No wonder those beauties are interested in you." Chiyu said impatiently, "Hurry up and leave. I'm not here to chat with you. What do those women have to do with me? As for clothes, from today on, my clothes will only be black." Yes, his clothes would only be black. In order to mourn Klinsman, the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus King, and the spiritual pet treasure when Ting was sleeping in his body. After entering the freight elevator, Jita didn't directly start the elevator. After the elevator door closed, He gently patted his left metal arm. At the same time, the watch on his right wrist lit up. A faint light was emitted, and with a beeping sound, the metal wall quietly moved to the side, revealing a door. Chapter 213. Behind the door was a staircase that led downwards. After descending about a dozen stairs, the two of them came to an open space. Chiyu could clearly feel that the surroundings were all made of alloy. Moreover, it was a super alloy with excellent hardness and ductility. Even with the strength of his spiritual power, it was extremely difficult for him to probe through the alloy above. Even if an atomic bomb exploded outside, as long as it was not at the front, the inside would not be affected too much. Jita said, "Master, this is the only door to the headquarters. You can feel it, right? Above here, there is a 3-meter thick super alloy. We will take the elevator down soon. After about 30 meters, we will reach the real headquarters. In this distance of 30 meters, almost all of our country's current high technology is used. The defense and security capabilities are extremely strong. As a national secret organization, the Yellow Flame Soul not only engaged in many special operations, but at the same time, it was also the country's secret information gathering department. Among them, there were top-notch high-level talents. That was why the defense facilities were so abnormal. After all, those who could come here were the most important talents of the country. The elevator that Jita mentioned was actually the entire place where they were standing. With a low mechanical sound, this room-like place slowly sank into the ground. It was a full 20 square meters of area. For such a huge alloy room to rise or sink into the ground, the amount of energy needed was enormous. Jita was still fiddling with his watch. Obviously, it was the device that controlled the elevator. Jita did not ask much. Just like some secrets that he did not want others to know, he also did not want to know too much. When the country needed him, he was willing to rush to the front. But during normal times, he hoped to live a peaceful life. Sure enough, just like what Jita said, the elevator stopped after descending for about 30 meters. The smooth wall in front of them actually split open. Not even a sound was made. Jita led Chi-Yu directly in, but his spiritual power still told him that there were at least dozens of life forms in this place. Moreover, each life form had its own characteristics. Some had extremely strong spiritual power, while others had very strong physical bodies. Although the energy fluctuations were different, they were obviously not ordinary people. Thinking of the Yellow Flame Soul experts that he had seen before, Chi-Yu could not help but deepen his understanding of this department, although these people were still lacking compared to the Zodiac Guardian warriors. However, it was not easy for the country to have so many experts. Moreover, these people belonged to the Yin Huang Soul realm. Although they were not as strong as the Zodiac Guardian God warriors in terms of battle prowess, their specializations were far superior. Jita brought Chi-Yu to a meeting room that was made of metal. At that moment, there were already 2 people in the meeting room. One of them was a heavenly soul expert that Chi-Yu was very familiar with. The other one was the plant soul that he hadn't seen for a long time. As soon as the plant saw Chi-Yu, she immediately pounced on him excitedly. In terms of age, she was actually only a few years younger than Chi-Yu. Ever since the last mission in the Sun Nation, she had developed a special sense of familiarity with Chi-Yu. When she heard that Chi-Yu had specially come to see her today, the little girl was filled with surprise. Chi-Yu subconsciously welcomed the plant soul's embrace, and a faint smile appeared on his cold face. He rejected the communication device that Jita had offered him and directly used his own spiritual power to communicate with the plant soul. The current Chi-Yu was no longer the weak Kirin who had gone to the Sun Nation. With the fluctuations of his spiritual power, he could directly know what the plant soul was thinking. Of course, the premise was that the plant soul did not hide anything from him and was willing to communicate with him mentally. Chi-Yu, who had become the source of nature, made the plant feel even more intimate. It was a feeling that could not be described with words. She fell into Chi-Yu's embrace, as if she had fallen into nature. His gentle and intimate gaze nourished her body. The heavenly soul looked at Chi-Yu in shock. After not seeing him for a period of time, not only had Chi-Yu's appearance changed, but the aura that he exuded had also changed drastically. Brothers Chi, you said, it's nothing. It's just a small matter. This time, I came to help the plant soul sister cure her throat. Let's do it here. Big brother Heavenly Soul, I have to trouble you to tell the others not to let anyone disturb me while I'm treating the plant soul sister. Is that okay? Tian Shintu and Jida looked at each other. They were even more shocked. The plant soul had an extremely important position in the Yin Huang soul. The Yin Huang soul had invited many experts to treat her throat, but in the end, they did not succeed. He knew about Chi Yu's strength, but did he have a stronger healing ability than ordinary people? It was really hard to believe. However, after thinking for a short while, the heavenly soul decided to let Chi Yu try. After all, he sincerely hoped that the plant soul could recover. He immediately agreed and walked out of the conference room with Jida. He also activated the defense system outside. Chi Yu held the plant soul's little hand and let her sit in front of him. The plant soul's senses were much more sensitive than ordinary people. Although Chi Yu did not look any different on the surface, she immediately felt the changes in Chi Yu's body. Big brother, your eyes, what's wrong with your eyes? Chi Yu smiled and said, it's nothing. I just can't see for the time being. It's okay. The plant soul covered her little mouth and looked at him in shock. Big brother wants her eyes. Big brother is so pitiful. Can't you see? Chi Yu smiled and shook his head. Although I can't see with my eyes, I still have my heart. Some things, when felt with my heart, are far more real than using my eyes to see. I'm sorry, little sister plant soul. It has been a while since I promised you that I would help you regain your ability to speak. However, I was delayed by some things, so I only came to find you now. Can you forgive Big Brother? The plant soul nodded quickly and said obediently, Big Brother must have a lot of things to settle. That's why you came late. However, I really miss Big Brother. If those in the world who had fought with plant souls before heard her threat through her spiritual power, their eyes would probably pop out of their sockets. One had to know. In this world, the plant soul could be linked to the god of death. Half of the missions she carried out were annihilated. It could be said that the plant which who could not speak and had a cold personality had always been one of the trump cards of the Yanhuang Republic. Chi Yu smiled faintly and replied, I missed you too. Big Brother can't stay for too long. Let's start now. Big Brother will try his best to cure your throat. In the future, my cute little plant sister will be able to speak. The plant soul's eyes revealed a trace of excitement. She did not know why. Although she knew that her throat was difficult to cure, she was full of confidence in Chi Yu. Taking a deep breath, Chi Yu held the plant soul's little hand. His dim red eyes were calm, without a trace of emotion. Green light gradually seeped out of his body. There were no plants here. He could not use the power of the source of nature to obtain more energy, so he could only use the power of his origin to help the plant soul. This kind of treatment undoubtedly consumed a lot of energy, but Chi Yu did not hold back at all. The plant soul widened its eyes in astonishment as it clearly sensed the energy contained in the green light spots. In a sense, the plant soul was astonished. Her ability was very similar to Chi Yu's source of nature. However, at this time, feeling the fluctuation of the natural energy in Chi Yu's body, the plant soul was shocked to find that she was like a part of Chi Yu, as if she could fuse with him at any time. The Chi Yu in front of her was like her father. That feeling of familiarity, along with the energy of the same origin, instantly enveloped her delicate body. Chi Yu's expression became calm, and the energy of the source of nature directly enveloped the plant soul's petite body. Just like what the plant soul felt, he also felt very familiar. The plant soul brought him. It was an extremely pure natural energy. Compared to his own natural energy, there was still a huge gap in purity. However, her natural energy was very pure, just like the icy aura that was released from Snow Girl's body. The degree of energy concentration was very high, and under the effect of his own source of nature, the natural energy in her body was actually absorbing the aura that he released and expanding rapidly. What a good plant body! Chi Yu could not help but exclaim in his heart. With him, the plant soul would put all its effort into exploring natural energy. Although his natural energy was much stronger than hers, In terms of using natural energy, he was not as good as the little girl in front of him. With a smile, a faint light flashed in Chi Yu's eyes. The natural energy in his hand did not decrease because of the plant soul's absorption, but instead became more powerful. The huge energy fluctuation caused the plant soul's delicate body to turn completely green. At this moment, she also completely opened up her body and every cell in front of Chi Yu, not hiding anything or holding anything back. Chi Yu's source of nature directly entered her body under the effect of his mental strength. Not only could he clearly feel the energy fluctuation of the source of nature in her body, but he could also feel the cultivation method of the plant soul through his mental strength. Feeling the cultivation method of the plant soul was very beneficial to Chi Yu. After all, he had always been purely absorbing the energy brought by the source of nature, and then transforming it into his own natural energy. When he used the source of nature, it only played a supporting role. To the plant soul, natural energy was not everything to her. Hence, her cultivation method could be said to be the cultivation method of nature energy. The fact that she was able to cultivate to such a level without the help of the origin of nature showed that her cultivation method was like adding wings to a tiger for Chi Yu. As the saying goes, good will always be rewarded. Chi Yu, who originally came for treatment, had unwillingly obtained the cultivation method of nature energy that he needed the most at this stage. The cultivation method of the plant soul was very unique. She did not circulate her own energy according to a certain meridian like ordinary cultivation methods. For example, Chi Yu cultivated the 8 extraordinary meridians of the ascending cloud technique. In her cultivation method, even the smallest capillary in her body was like the roots of a plant, all the way to the veins of a leaf. Every cell was driven by the meridians and blood vessels that densely covered her body and operated according to the nutrient circulation method of the plant soul. Although she was a human, when she cultivated, she could turn herself into a plant and have the aura of a plant. She could resonate with the plants and nature to a certain extent. Thus, through the pores all over her body, she could absorb the natural energy in the air. This kind of absorption method was undoubtedly very slow, and it had a lot to do with the surrounding environment. The more plants there were around, the more beneficial it was for her cultivation. At this moment, the cultivation method in her body that was like the veins of a leaf was rapidly absorbing the natural energy that Chi Yu transmitted over. This cultivation method that used all the meridians in her body was extremely fast in the process of absorbing energy. Because of this, although the plant soul was not old, its strength was already very strong in the history of Yan Huang souls. It was very difficult for Chi Yu to cultivate using the plant soul method. After all, he already had the ascending cloud technique and Kiran's ascending cloud technique. If he changed to the plant soul, it would be changing the way his energy circulated. Although the meridians and blood vessels in his body had been improved by the source of nature, he was still a human after all. Moreover, the amount of energy in his body was far greater than that of a plant soul. Therefore, if there was a problem during cultivation, it would be a devastating blow to Chi Yu. Therefore, although he had memorized the cultivation method of the plant soul, he could only try it carefully in his future cultivation. Chi did not purposely heal the plant soul's throat. He simply transferred his natural energy into her body without any reservation. Originally, he wanted to use the characteristics of the source of nature and Kiran's marrow washing and tendon changing technique to help the plant soul heal. However, now that he had obtained the cultivation method of natural energy from her, Chi wanted to give the plant soul some compensation, and the huge amount of natural energy in her body was obviously the best way to make up for it. Through the detection of spiritual power, when Chi Yu's natural energy had just completely enveloped the plant soul's body, she already understood why the experts could not treat the plant soul. If the plant soul was still young, it should have been possible to treat it. However, as her special cultivation method made her stronger and stronger, although she was still a human now, the way the bloodline in her body worked was too different from that of an ordinary person. How could treating a plant soul with the same method as treating a human achieve the desired effect? Now that it was Qi Yu's turn to treat the plant soul, he used his natural energy to nourish the plant soul's body, and the healing process became much simpler. The plant soul's throat was innately unable to speak, which meant that she had a congenital defect from the moment she was born. The source of nature's energy was the best energy to fix this defect. Therefore, she knew that as long as she transferred her energy to the plant soul, her body would start to heal on its own. She did not need to waste any effort at all. Qi Yu's natural energy was vast. Although she had not recovered to her peak state, as the source of nature, she could be said to be the queen of nature. Her current energy was already an astronomical figure for the plant soul. As she continued to absorb, the plant soul's body started to change. Meanwhile, after the huge amount of natural energy entered her body, she lost all sense of the outside world. He lost all sense of the outside world and was completely bathed in that warm energy. The plant soul was originally less than 6 meters tall, but as the natural energy nourished her body, her petite body started to grow again. As she sat in front of Qi Yu, her limbs became slender, and her youthful face gradually matured. She no longer looked like a child, but a real young lady. Moreover, she was a stunning young lady. Her delicate face, which was filled with the aura of nature, exuded an amiable aura. Her originally petite body was currently developing into a slender and long body. The natural energy in Qi Yu's body was circulating slowly. Of course, he would not repeat the mistake he made with Yamu. When circulating the natural energy, the thundercloud force in his body became the strongest guardian. 4 types of thundercloud force spread out from his body at the same time. They covered the entire room invisibly. If there were any abnormal changes, these energies would be activated immediately. With the previous lesson, no matter what he did, even Qi Yu became more cautious. Even though he knew that there was no way there would be any danger, he would do the same, because Yamu had already told him that in this world, no one could be absolutely trusted, and no one was absolutely safe. As long as he was careful, he could filter out all dangers. The energy transfer lasted for a full hour. When Qi Yu felt that the plant soul's body had been filled with a huge amount of natural energy, he stopped the energy transfer. He understood the principle of going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Given the plant soul's current situation, after obtaining the energy from the source of nature, it was not like other people who only changed their bodies. As the plant soul's controller, its strength had more than doubled. It slowly stopped the natural energy transfer. Feeling the changes in the plant soul's body and the flaws that had been completely repaired, Qi Yu smiled faintly. He suddenly realized that when he helped others, his gloomy mood would be alleviated to a certain extent. Perhaps this was the benefit of doing a good deed. At least, it was beneficial to his heart. As the natural energy transfer stopped, the plant's soul gradually woke up from the warm ocean. She was surprised to find that her body had undergone earth-shattering changes. Her body was filled with a huge amount of natural energy, and she did not know how much stronger she was than before. It was not just a feeling of being filled with power. Even her senses had become much stronger than before. One must know that it was extremely important for her to sense the existence of plants. She subconsciously raised her right hand and waved it gently. Instantly, a vine rushed out at an astonishing speed. As it had just obtained such a huge amount of energy, the plant's soul could not control it for a moment. The vine grew rapidly and filled the entire room in the blink of an eye. The aura of the plant filled the metal room with vitality. The appearance of the plant also made Qi Yu feel refreshed. Although the vine grew with the support of the plant soul's energy as the source of nature, he could still see everything in front of him through the vine. Due to the power of the plant's soul and the natural energy in the room, Qi Yu could see everything very clearly with his mind's eye this time. The plant spirit's clothes were completely torn, especially in front of her chest. The original B cup had expanded to at least a D cup, and the thin material was no longer enough to cover it. In addition to the slender jade legs that were exposed, the exposed skin on her arms, and the huge vines that surrounded her body, She looked like a princess of nature, full of special attractiveness. Plant soul sister, don't you need to change your clothes? After growing up, although the plant soul had lost its original childishness, she had definitely become a beauty. Moreover, she was a beauty that made Chiyu feel extremely close to her. Although his heart had already been frozen because of the incident with Yumao, the fact that the beauty was so exposed in front of him, coupled with the fact that this was a plant soul that he treated as his younger sister, still made him feel a little strange. Only then did the plant soul realize her situation. She let out a soft cry, and the surrounding vines quickly wrapped her delicate body. "Brother, you're so naughty. Didn't you say that you can't see?" The plant soul was stunned as soon as she said that. That was because this time, their communication was not on a spiritual level. Yes, she could speak. The plant soul was stunned, and her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She looked at Chiyu in a daze, and the surrounding vines were trembling slightly with her delicate body. "Brother, brother, I can speak." A knowing smile appeared on Chiyu's face. "Congratulations, plant spirit sister. It's a pity that I can't truly see your current appearance. What I saw earlier was only possible through the vine you created. As long as you retract into your body, I won't be able to see anything." The plant's soul blushed. At this moment, she did not care about being shy anymore. It had been 18 years. She finally had the ability to speak. That kind of joy was something that normal people could not understand. She quickly retracted the vine and dashed into Chiyu's arms like a bird flying into the woods. She hugged him and shouted and jumped excitedly. Her slender and voluptuous body kept rubbing against Chiyu's body. Chiyu was very happy when he felt the plant soul's excitement. However, the stimulation that the plant soul brought to his body was a little too much. Even though his heart was like dead water, he still had a physiological reaction. When the plant soul's excitement calmed down, Chiyu quickly took out a piece of his clothes from the Kirin pearl and covered her delicate body. "Brother, how can I thank you?" The plant soul looked at Chiyu with tears in her eyes. At that moment, Chiyu's face was a little pale because he had released a large amount of nature energy. The plant soul could feel the deathly still aura on his body more clearly. Since they had the same source of nature energy, the Nahua soul could sense Chiyu more clearly than the heavenly soul. She knew that something unusual must have happened to her brother. Chiyu smiled. "It's only right for a brother to help his little sister. Look at you now, excited appearance. Listen to your clear voice. This is the best way to thank me. Cherish everything you have now. I believe that you will definitely become stronger in the future." The plant soul looked at Chiyu quietly. Gentle nature energy surrounded Chiyu's body and flowed into him. It wasn't just nature energy. It also contained the plant soul's kindness and gratitude towards Chiyu. "Brother, thank you. Thank you so much. From now on, you're my family." As she spoke, the plant soul leaped into Chiyu's arms and hugged him tightly. There was no lust in that hug. Instead, it was a hug filled with affection. Just like Chiyu, she was also an orphan. At that moment, she was as happy as if she had found her brother in this vast world. A sense of satisfaction rose in Chiyu's heart as he gently stroked the plant soul's long hair. He knew that his trip this time had not been in vain. "Little plant spirit sister, can you tell me, how did you make that vine grow from your hand just now? You should have sensed it as well. I also have nature energy on me, but it's impossible for me to conjure plants out of thin air like you. Is this your special ability?" Chiyu asked curiously. The plant soul giggled and said, "Silly brother, how could that be? Your nature energy is much stronger than mine. Moreover, the nature aura that you give off is the aura of a king. How could I do something that even you can't? Actually, the secret is very simple. Look." As she spoke, she opened her right palm in front of Chiyu. After she did this, she remembered that Chiyu was blind. She quickly grabbed his hand and stroked it gently on her right palm. The plant soul's little hand was not only soft, but also very smooth. As soon as he touched her hand, Chiyu came to a sudden realization. He blurted out, "Seeds." The plant soul nodded and smiled as she hooked Chiyu's arm. She said, "That's right, Seeds. I have participated in many Yellow Flame Soul missions. Under many circumstances, it is impossible for me to have plants around me. Without plants, it is very difficult for me to use my abilities. Of course, I can become stronger in a forest or a place with many plants. However, it is impossible for me to not be able to use my abilities without plants. Therefore, seeds are extremely necessary. The nature energy that we have can completely help plants grow at an alarming rate. In that case, seeds can also work. Therefore, I always carry many kinds of seeds with me. There are poisonous ones, non-poisonous ones, tough ones, and so on. Chiyu slapped his forehead. That was really a wake-up call. Yes, if he did not have plants around him, could he not make plants himself? How much space could seeds take up? As long as he had seeds with him, he could make plants grow when he needed them. He could use them as his eyes and weapons. Thank you, Sister Plant Soul. You have shown me a new field. To be honest, after obtaining the nature energy, I have never known how to use it. Chiyu had already grasped something in his heart. He suddenly thought that under certain circumstances, all kinds of energy could be fused with each other. At the same time, they could also support each other. Although his Kirin's ability was far from the nature source, if he could support it well, he would definitely be able to increase his strength to another level. He would not be limited to Kirin's ability. Since the heavens had given him the nature source, he must make full use of it. Although it did not say how to use this ability, he knew that as long as he worked hard, he would definitely be able to find a way to use it. Thinking of this, the light in Chi-Yu's eyes became even brighter. At this moment, the communication device in the room rang. "Master, are you all right?" It was Jida's voice. It turned out that he had felt that the energy fluctuations in the room were too frequent, and there were also some special fluctuations that caused the external defense energy of the metal room to be greatly impacted. Therefore, he had come to ask. Chi-Yu said, "I'm fine. You can come in." When Jida and the Heavenly Soul walked in from the outside, they could not help but widen their eyes when they saw the fully matured Plant Soul. Jida was dumbfounded. "Oh my God, Sister Plant Soul, did you take hormones? How did you become like this?" The Plant Soul giggled and said, "You're the one who took hormones. Can taking hormones make your body grow perfectly? I'm afraid there is no such technology in the world." The Heavenly Soul asked, "Then what's going on?" Chapter 214. Are you cold? The coldest part is yet to come. Chi-Yu chuckled as his body suddenly floated forward, sticking close to Yin Xiaoyi's back. Immediately after, Yin Xiaoyi felt a powerful force as his body flew uncontrollably out of the cave like a cannonball. With a plop, he fell into the frozen spring. Due to the shock of his pet, Treasure Danglong, he let out a miserable shriek before it abruptly stopped. Chi-Yu's body emitted a cold aura. "All right, do you want me to do it? But do you want to jump down yourself?" Hu Guang said, "Boss, what's down there?" Chi-Yu smiled and said, "The frozen spring." "Ah, are you trying to freeze us to death?" "I won't go even if you beat me to death," Hu Guang said firmly. Chi-Yu said calmly, but with a hint of evil, "I won't go even if I beat you to death? Does that mean I'll go if I can't kill you? You can go down now." An enormous energy aura surged forth without warning. It was impossible to dodge in this narrow ice cave. Although Hu Guang was not weak, he was still far from Chi-Yu's. In the blink of an eye, Hu Guang's body had already been flung away by Chi-Yu's enormous energy, causing him to let out a miserable cry. Chi-Yu's aura turned to the other Zodiac warriors. In fact, everyone knew that he would never harm them, but the temperature was too low. If they stayed in the water, wouldn't they be frozen? Ming looked at Chi-Yu and said, "I'll go down myself." Of course, she had to support her husband. Hence, she was the first to jump down. With Ming leading the way, Shang Bing and the Plant Soul also jumped down. Hummer took a deep breath and said, "I'll go down myself too. Are we men not as good as these girls?" Perhaps they were provoked by his words, but without waiting for Chi-Yu to waste any more effort, the Zodiac Guardian God warriors had already drilled out of the cave and jumped into the incomparably cold frozen spring. 10 minutes passed quickly. Chi-Yu didn't even look at the frozen spring. He just waited quietly at the entrance of the cave. Every time a member of the Zodiac squad slid down, he would pat them with his palm. A warm, natural energy filled their hearts, and in the next moment, their bodies were sent into the frozen spring by Chi-Yu. Ryue was the last to come down. When she came down, there was still no sound from the frozen spring. "There's no one up there." "Chi-Yu, what kind of place is this?" Ryue asked curiously. Chi-Yu said, "It's a very good place to train. The previous month was actually to prepare for today. Only when everyone's body strength reaches a certain level, then it's suitable to come here and absorb the essence of heaven and earth. All right, you should go down too. Although it's very cold, you should be able to feel that the energy molecules here are very pure and they don't have any attributes. The cold can't cover the spirituality of the essence of heaven and earth." Ryue nodded and was the last to jump into the frozen spring. Ryue went down, and Chi-Yu also followed her out of the cave. However, his body didn't fall down, but floated in the air. Ever since he left the ancient behemoth era, the black and white dragons have been staying here to train. The secret of the energy here was also told to him by the black and white dragons. Originally, when Chi-Yu chose to camp next to the Kunlun Mountains for training, he wanted to let the ninjas train in this complicated and difficult environment. But when he heard the black and white dragons talk about the truth of the energy in the frozen spring, he immediately had other ideas. After a few days of contemplation, he had come up with an absolutely feasible solution. Until today, when he felt that the bodies of the members of the 12 Zodiac squad were strong enough to handle all of this, he brought them here. Floating above the frozen spring, Chi-Yu could clearly see that every member of the 12 Zodiac squad that entered the frozen spring was now quietly floating on the surface of the frozen lake. Their faces had long been frozen to a pale green color. It should be known that although the water here had not frozen, the temperature was much, much lower than that of ice. Under the circumstances where they were not prepared and had used up a lot of energy to climb the mountain, there were only a few Zodiac Guardian God warriors that were at least 5 cloud level and above. However, in order to use all of their strength to resist the surrounding cold, they all floated there with ashen faces. No one said a word, except for Ryue and Ming Ming, who looked at Chi-Yu with no change of expression. The others had a somewhat pleading look on their faces. Chi-Yu did not pay attention to them. Floating in the air, his spiritual force and the thundercloud force moved at the same time. First, a green light illuminated the dark space, followed by purple, red, and blue lights. Especially the blue light. In this place full of water energy molecules, it could better display its effect, allowing Chi-Yu to mobilize the water thundercloud force with greater ease. Faint green light spots appeared on the surface of Chi-Yu's body, condensing into green light balls that floated around his body. In about 5 minutes, Chi-Yu had already released more than 2/3 of the nature energy in his body. Using his spiritual force to control the light balls around his body, each light ball formed by the nature energy was pulled by an invisible thread formed by his spiritual force. The faint green light made Chi-Yu look a little strange. "Come!" Chi-Yu suddenly shouted. The 4-colored thundercloud force that he emitted earlier suddenly became stronger, and the light balls formed by the nature energy looked like they were floating in a huge 4-colored ocean. Kirin's shadow rose from behind him. Kirin's body stepped on the 4-colored auspicious cloud, and the black and silver horn on his head rose high, bursting with dazzling light. In an instant, Kirin's aura filled the entire cave. Chi-Yu's deep voice resounded throughout the entire space. With the nature energy as the guide, with Kirin's bloodline as the source, the ancient Kirin's aura explode in the tremor of life. His eyes, which had turned red due to his blindness, instantly turned bright silver, and Kirin's original energy suddenly became stronger, being released from his body without reservation. The huge energy aura constantly changed in the air, and the light balls formed by the nature energy began to condense with Chi-Yu's own energy. Kirin's energy was like a ribbon connecting them, floating downwards. Every light ball formed by the nature energy found a person in the water, and the bodies of the members of the 12 Zodiac teams in the water were immediately dyed green. In the next moment, the silver light in Chi-Yu's eyes became even stronger, and the silver light in his left eye gradually turned black. one black and one silver, looking full of an evil aura. At this moment, a huge amount of energy was completely released. The release of Kieran's original energy caused Chiyu's face to look a little pale. After a pause, Chiyu raised his right arm, and 5 rays of blood-red light burst out from the fingers of his right hand at the same time. The blood quickly condensed in the air, forming a blood-red light ball. The light ball floated in front of Chiyu's chest, facing the Kieran Pearl. Lin Bing Do, Je Quan Quan formation, with Kieran's blood as the source, the ancient Kieran's power. I summon you in the name of Ink Kieran. Release Kieran's blood, and bless all the creatures in front of you. Kieran's energy, which was connected to more than 100 people below, had a touch of silver light. The blood pearl condensed in front of Chi began to melt, and strands of blood-red light were transmitted into each person's body through those threads. At this moment, everyone in the water trembled violently, as if they were enduring some kind of great pain. The water surface of the frozen spring also fluctuated rapidly, as if it was boiling. Chiyu's expression became somewhat solemn. He calmly looked at everything below and shouted, "Kieran's blessing for Thundercloud Force." The 4 colors of Thundercloud Force spread out in all directions at the same time. Everyone received the support of Kieran's Thundercloud Force according to their different attributes. Under the effect of Kieran's Thundercloud Force, the pure energy contained in the frozen spring was also triggered. A faint layer of water mist rose from the boiling water surface and merged with everyone's body. During the process of the water mist merging, it also brought a large amount of energy into their bodies. Under the effect of the nature energy released by Chi-Yu and Kieran's origin energy, everyone's body quickly absorbed the foreign energy and quickly transformed it into something that belonged to them. What Chi wanted to do was very simple. He wanted to use his own energy as a medium to help the members of the 12 Zodiac absorb the huge amount of energy that had been condensed here for many years. Without the origin of nature, it would have been impossible to achieve this goal. At the same time, without Kieran's origin energy, if his 4 attributes of Thundercloud Force did not meet everyone's needs in different transformations, it would also have been impossible. At the same time, Chiyu also displayed one of Kieran's ultimate skills, which was Kieran's assimilation. Kieran's assimilation was a skill that Zagru taught to Chiyu. Assimilation was one of Kieran's ultimate skills. Although this skill did not have any attack or defense abilities, it could grant one of Kieran's abilities to each creature within its range. As for which ability the space granted, it depended on Kieran's own will. Every Kieran could use Kieran's assimilation. However, just like the life and death domain that Chiyu used to tame the Bull Demon King, this skill could only be used once in Kieran's life. At this moment, Chiyu used it. The ability that he granted to everyone present was one of Kieran's origin abilities, Kieran Shintaka. Yes, it was Kieran Shintaka. After learning Kieran's assimilation, Chiyu was reminded of the Ultralisk companions that the humans of various races had mentioned during the ancient Ultralisk era. It was undoubtedly very difficult and dangerous to obtain an almighty beast partner. However, everything would be much simpler if he had the Qilint's divine descent, which was the Qilint's origin ability. Because of this assimilation, Chiyu's Kieran's divine descent was reduced by 1. Fortunately, there was only the Bull Demon King in his body now, so Kieran's divine descent could still be used once. It was the first time in the entire history of Kieran to use Kieran's divine descent on such a large scale. Even Mo wouldn't dare to do this. After all, Kieran's origin energy could be said to be the foundation of Kieran. Once it was used excessively, the impact on Kieran's body would be immeasurable. However, Chi was different. He was Ink Kieran of the 4 auspicious clouds. Compared to other Kieran, the origin energy that he possessed was not only very strange, but it was also much larger. In order to improve the strength of the 12 Zodiac teams, he decided to do this after much consideration. In the frozen spring, there was a large amount of neutral energy as a backup, which reduced his consumption to a minimum. The large amount of energy was continuously transmitted to the members of the 12 Zodiac teams as their bodies trembled. This time, not only did their bodies undergo a great transformation, but the energy in their bodies was also strengthened in the process of absorbing the energy. As long as one was human, they would be selfish. Chi was no exception. Although he was also promoting the growth of energy, he placed more of his attention on the Zodiac Guardian Warriors during the process of promoting the growth. After all, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors were the foundation. As for the members of the 12 Zodiac teams, the internal energy of the frozen spring began to be transmitted according to Chi Yu's instructions, and it quieted down again. This time, the period of quietness far exceeded Chi Yu's calculations. According to Chi Yu's calculations, he had originally thought that 3 days would be enough. However, by the time all the energy from the frozen spring had been absorbed by himself and the 12 Zodiac teams, a full 7 days had already passed. These 7 days were not only a process of cultivation, but also a process of being reborn. The sun shone brightly on the Kunlun mountain range. The snow-white icebergs reflected the sunlight, making the entire Kunlun mountain range look even purer. Looking back at the Kunlun mountain range behind them, the eyes of everyone in the 12 Zodiac teams were filled with complicated emotions. In this place, they had endured too much pain, but it was also here that they had reached an unprecedented peak. Mo Dandan jumped up and down in high spirits. One moment, she ran to the front of the group, and the next moment, she returned to the back of the group. Seeing that everyone seemed so friendly, the people who watched her running couldn't help but worry for her. What if her super round breasts broke out of her clothes? What kind of scene would that be? It was no wonder that Mo Dan was so excited. After all, when they left the Kunlun mountain range, Mo Dan found that not only did her strength greatly increase, but she also made great progress. From the 3-cloud realm that she had obtained in the previous month, she directly entered the 5-cloud realm. The same thing happened to Guanjing, who also reached the 5-cloud realm. Although Vol and Yin Xiaoyi were also at the 5-cloud realm, their strength was already close to the 6-cloud realm. Without a doubt, the natural energy was the most abundant. The energy that had been accumulated in the frozen spring for many years was swept away by them, so it was normal for such a big change to occur. Among the Zodiac warriors, the one who changed the least was Ryue. She did not have any breakthrough and was still at the 7-cloud realm, but now she was infinitely close to the 8-cloud realm. One must know that the last 3 clouds of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors were the hardest to advance. Other than Vol, Yin Xiaoyi, Mo Dan, and Guanjing, the other 8 Zodiac Guardian Warriors had all reached the 6-cloud realm and above. Other than Changjia, who joined the Zodiac Guardian Warriors later and was at the 6-cloud realm, the other 7 were all at the 7-cloud realm, just at different degrees. Just like everyone else, Chi finally reached the 7-cloud realm under the influence of the frozen spring's energy. However, although he had gained a lot from the 7 days of cultivation, he had also paid a huge price. When the cultivation ended, he almost fainted due to the excessive consumption of nature energy and Kirin's origin energy. He insisted on telling everyone their next destination before entering his own cultivation. The black and white dragons followed them out of the snow mountain. After all, Chi did not go too far. Although the energy of the frozen spring had been completely drained under his guidance, the frozen spring still existed. With the divine power of Kunlun's illusion below as the foundation, the energy in the frozen spring would condense again. Right now, Chi was sitting on the back of the black dragon. Others might not know the path of the ancient beasts, but the white dragon and the black dragon did. They were now leading the way, and their destination was the headquarters of the Earth Tribe's village. After more than a month of training, more than 100 members of the 12 Zodiacs, including Shangbing, Jita, and the plant soul, had been reborn. According to Chi Yu's plan, they needed to start training on a real battlefield. Under the baptism of blood and fire, they could grow further and also better use the thundercloud force that they had improved to achieve the combat power corresponding to their realm. Among the 12 Zodiac Guardian God warriors, There were always 4 of them by the Black Dragon's side to protect Chiyu. The training in the Kunlun Mountains had made the 12 Zodiac Guardian God warriors work very well together. At this time, although the black and white dragons were at the front, the 12 Zodiac Guardian God warriors were moving forward in a semi-encirclement. There were 4 teams on the left and right, and 4 teams behind them. The members of the teams on the periphery were always on high alert. Since the continent was covered by the primeval forest during the era of the ancient beasts, the wood-type Shun family members took the initiative to take on the task of scouting the periphery. Under the improvement of Chi-Yu's source of nature, their perception of plants was many times stronger than before. As long as someone came within a kilometer of them, they would be alerted. It had been 5 days since they left the Kunlun Mountains, but Chi-Yu was still in the state of training. Everyone could often see a faint green light emitting from Chi-Yu's body, and the energy particles around him were much stronger than in other places. Snow Girl asked the Black Dragon, "Big brother, how far are we from the earthly race's headquarters?" The Black Dragon thought for a moment and said, "If we keep going like this, it will take about 10 days. It's a pity that Chi-Yu is now in the middle of training. Otherwise, with the size of the White Dragon and I, we can definitely fly with you more than 100 people. In that case, we can reach the destination in, at most, 3 or 4 days." Chi-Yu is currently mainly absorbing natural energy, and the effect of absorbing it on the ground and in the air was completely different. In order to recover as soon as possible, everyone chose to travel on the ground. Speaking up to this point, the Black Dragon's purple eyes suddenly lit up. "Hey, it seems like the aura of the ancient beasts." Everyone stopped for a moment. His perception was naturally much stronger than the Shun family members. Looking at the serious light in the Black Dragon's eyes, the Zodiac Guardian warriors subconsciously surrounded Chi-Yu, and each team also maintained a battle formation, ready to deal with any sudden changes. Sure enough, not long after, everyone felt a strong pressure coming from the air. The pressure came from the sky, and in the distance, the bright sky suddenly darkened. "Oh my God, what is that?" The plant's soul screamed. She saw that it was not a dark cloud floating in the distance. It seemed to be some kind of creature. The creatures flying at the front were huge, and they could travel hundreds of meters with a single flap of their wings. There were close to 200 of them. Not only did they give off a strong pressure, but they also blocked the sunlight. The plant soul was shocked by the creature's presence. As they gradually approached, Ryue first saw what they were, because most of the Zodiac Guardian warriors had seen this kind of creature, and it was also this kind of creature that made Chi-Yu use the ultimate Kirin arm. Yes, it was the golden-winged eagle, and it was an army of golden-winged eagles. The golden-winged eagle flying in the front had a wingspan of more than 15 meters, and its huge body reflected a golden luster under the sun. The strong aura was mainly released from its body. Behind it were 4 golden-winged eagles with wingspans of about 10 meters. The figures behind them were much smaller. Most of them only had wingspans of about 5 to 8 meters. However, with their wings and bodies, they were more than 5 meters wide, which was shocking enough. The number of more than 200 golden-winged eagles looked terrifying. Ryue asked Black Dragon, "Are they coming for us?" Black Dragon shook his head. "Impossible. They're the Wisdom King's clansmen." From the looks of it, this number is at least a third of the Wisdom King's clansmen. In the entire Golden-Winged Eagle clan, there are no more than 15 that have reached the strength of 10,000 years, and there are 5 of them here. Among them, the one at the front, although its strength isn't as strong as the Wisdom King's, it seems to have a cultivation of nearly 20,000 years. In the ancient era of giant beasts, it was definitely the strongest among the strong. The Golden-Winged Eagle clan has a natural restraining effect on reptilian ancient giant beasts like us. With so many of them appearing at once, it's best for us to avoid them. Ryue smiled bitterly. "We have so many people, and you guys are so big, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to avoid them." Black Dragon glanced at the members of the 12 Zodiac squad beside him. Although they were facing a huge pressure from the sky, each of them had a resolute look on their faces. They weren't the slightest bit intimidated by the golden-winged eagles in the sky. Black Dragon said, If it was a month ago, I would definitely tell you to run away, but now it's not like we don't have the strength to fight. Of course, this can only be done under Chi Yu's leadership. After all, in the battle of the ancient giant beasts, the most important thing is the clash between the strongest of the two sides. I wonder how much Chi Yu's strength has recovered. Ryue nodded. After all, the strength of the 12 Zodiac Guardian Warriors has reached the 5 Cloud Realm, so it's not like they don't have the strength to fight. For example, she was close to the 8 Cloud Realm, so her overall strength wasn't much weaker than Black Dragon. If she could break through to the 8 Cloud Realm, perhaps even Black Dragon wouldn't be her opponent. Smiling faintly, the light in Ryue's eyes brightened. If people don't offend me, then I won't offend them. Everyone, stay where you are. If they don't attack us, then we'll let them know the power of the 12 Zodiac Squad. All Zodiac Guardian Warriors, return to your squads. Snow Girl, Shangbing, Plant Soul, Jita, I'll leave Chiyu to you. Please protect him. Jita said, Don't worry, Ryue. As long as we're still breathing, we won't let those feathered beasts hurt Chiyu. Ryue nodded, floated up, and returned to her squad. The members of the 12 Zodiac Squad began to effectively combine, regrouping according to the 4 major families. Although this disrupted the original order of the squad, it was the only way to maximize their strength. Closer and closer, the golden-winged eagle legion in the sky had clearly noticed the humans and the black and white dragons below. 4 fierce beasts like the golden-winged eagle legion, the NEI pill of the reptilian ancient giant beast, was undoubtedly their favorite. If the ancient giant beast was strong enough, NEI pill could even increase their strength by several hundred years. For beasts like the black and white dragons, who were obviously 10,000 years old, NEI pill could even increase their strength by more than 1,000 years. For these fierce beasts, humans were negligible. Therefore, as soon as they discovered the black and white dragons, the leading golden-winged eagle legion immediately let out a loud cry. A total of 200 golden-winged eagles immediately spread out in formation, forming an arc as they surrounded the humans below. While flying at a lower altitude, they released their own golden light. At this moment, Chiyu, who had been sitting on the back of the black and white dragons, suddenly opened his eyes. A faint smile appeared on his face as he muttered to himself, Beasts have delivered themselves to our doorstep. Speaking of which, we don't need to be polite. It seems that the 12 Zodiac Squad has become the Air Force.